Hey, did you hear that Google Offers is coming soon to your city? Subscribe now and get amazing deals in your inbox for great places to eat, shop, and play. We're all about helping you get the best of your city at even better prices. Find out more and sign up for Google Offers at google.com/offers.
Suburban days, they last so long. In shop and office, we sing our song, we all sing. We ain't got nothing, nothing to do. A big fat nothing, nothing for me, nothing for you. Suburban dreams, just out of reach. Work till you die. That's what they teach you at school. With that in mind, what's there to lose? My friends and I don't talk on TV, flags and blues. Oh, hear them all singing. We're the ones that you forgotten. But we will not play tonight. Coming out of the shadows. Suburban nights, they get so hot. People get angry. We sing our song, we all sing a global terror. They say we are at war, but I ain't got time for that, 'cause those bills keep dropping through my door. Hear them all singing. We're the ones you've forgotten. Us, well, we're only saying what we're seeing with our own eyes. This one-way system, it ain't paradise. Not everybody wants to race, wants to fight. Hear them all singing. We're the ones that you've forgotten. But we will not be denied. did all these smart girls come from? I don't think that I could choose just one. Where did all these smart girls come from? Someone tell me how to get me some. On the floor, in a car, on a seat, at the bar, wherever I go, that's where they are. Smart girls, never get enough of those smart girls. Smart girls, I wanna be a bad boy right now. Feel me is dying to hang out. I know you know what I'm talking about. I got a feeling you could show me how. On a bus, on a train, on a boat, on a plane, I'm falling in love. What's your name? Smart girls, never get enough of those smart girls. Sleeping in the bar. Sherry, Allison, Mary, which one do I want to marry? They're all smart girls. They're all smart girls. Sheena, Lola, Fabiola, don't you know ya? Make me lose my mind. Where did all these smart girls come from? I don't think that I could choose just one. Where did all these smart girls come from? Someone tell me how to get me started. Saw Britney, Paula, Whitney, which one do I want here with me? They're all smart girls. They're all smart girls. Debbie, Donna, Tatiana, don't you know ya? Make me lose my mind. Smart girls, never get enough of those smart girls. Sleeping in the bar. Smart girls, talking about smart girls. All I want is smart girls, talking about smart girls. I wake up every evening with a big smile on my face, and it never feels out of place. And you're still probably working at a 9 to 5 pace. I wonder how bad that tastes when you see my face. Hope it gives you hell, hope it gives you hell. When you walk my way, hope it gives you hell, hope it gives you hell. Now where's your picket fence, love? And where's that shiny car? And did it ever get you far? You never seem so tense, love. I've never seen you fall so hard. Do you know where you are?
Your eyes aren't just windows to your soul, they're also windows to your health. They let eye doctors identify early signs of health problems like heart disease and diabetes. That's why it's smart to have a yearly comprehensive eye exam. Go to thinkaboutyoureyes.com and find an eye doctor near you today.
Change your heart. Look around you. Change your heart. It will astound you. And I need your loving like the sunshine. And everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime. Change your heart. Look around you. Change your heart. It will astound you. I need your loving like the sunshine. And everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime.
When we arrive, sons and daughters, we'll make our homes on the water. We'll build our walls, aluminum, we'll fill our mouths with cinema now. These currents pull us across the border. Steady your boats, arms to shoulder, till tides all pull. Our hull the ground's making this call. Harbor now home. Take up your arms, sons and daughters. We will arise from the bunkers, by land, by sea, by dirigible. We'll leave our tracks untraceable now. Hear all the bombs that fade away. 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 Fade away. Fade away.
Trader Joe's was born of a desire to bring inventive foods, excellent values, and flashy Hawaiian shirts to neighborhoods across America. We operate where great price and high quality come together. We call that intersection value. Thanks for listening.
Of my life, lying in bed in the sunlight, choking on the vitamin tablets doctor gave in the hope of saving me, in the hope of saving me. Moths in the corner of the room, the junkyard full with eyes of gloom. I asked him time again, take me in and draw the rain. Take me in and draw the rain. Take me in and draw the rain. Take me in and draw the rain, the rain, the rain, the rain, the rain, my rain now. Thirsty brown boots in the corner by the iron bar. Spray on dust is the greatest thing. Sure is the greatest thing since the light. Since the light. Moths in the corner of the room, the junkyard full with eyes of gloom. I asked him time again, take me in and draw the rain. Take me in and draw
Is it time to upgrade your computer, smartphone, TV, or electronic games? Then it's time to think about recycling your old electronics at eCollective. It's safe, easy, and free. Visit takeitbackforgood.com to find your nearest drop-off location.
Sick and tired.
surround me and bathe my skin in water cool and cleansing, and feel what it's like to be new. 'Cause in my head there's a Greyhound station where I send my thoughts to far off destinations, so they may have a chance of finding a place where they're far more suited than here. I cannot guess what you'll discover. Meets in the dirt with our palms cupped like shovels, but I know our filthy hands can wash one another's, and not one speck will remain. I do believe it's true that there are rugs left in both of our shoes. But if the silence takes you, then I hope it takes me too. So flowers, I'll hold you near, 'cause you're the only song I want to hear. A melody softly soaring through my atmosphere, where your soul meets body, where a soul meets body, where a soul meets body. I do believe it's true that there are roads left in both of our shoes. But if the silence takes you, then I hope it takes me too. So flowers, I'll hold you near, 'cause you're the only song I want to hear. A melody softly soaring through my atmosphere, a melody softly soaring through my atmosphere, a melody softly soaring through my atmosphere, a melody softly soaring through my atmosphere.
Mary, Mary, why you bugging? Mary, Mary, I need your hugging. How's my girl called her honey? Man, did you spend up all my money? Catch me in debt, you and your girl Chrissy. Stop smoking crack, but you're still getting pissy. You can call me every day, God sent. Like you Lois Lane and I was Clark Kent. I spend and I spend and he spent and he spent. Now my house with a mouse is a roach with a tent. Mary, Mary, why you bugging? Mary, Mary, I need your hugging. Mary, Mary, you go from sucking. Looking for you, but you keep ducking. I wanna find you, I gotta tell you something. So just be quiet and don't say nothing. Mary, 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 why you out there stunting? Supposed to be with me, but now you're fronting. We started out new, you used to be true. Now you're bugging, what's wrong with you? Mary, Mary, why you bugging? Mary, Mary, I need your hugging. Now, this girl Mary I knew so well. I met her on the road in a fly hotel. she dwells. Thought that man was well to tell. She seems to scheme for a dream to sell. She spent some nights locked in a cell. I knew Mary well, cause she's raising hell. Mary, Mary, why you bugging? Mary, Mary, I need your hugging. It's not Mary who is quite contrary. Talk about Mary who is always in a hurry. The things she needed were necessary. She did not need a busted cherry. Blue and blue just like a blueberry. Ask if you crazy and I'll say very. Living in a house that's out on the prairie. I worry about Mary cause Mary is scary. Mary, why you bugging? Mary, I need your hugging. Mary, why you bugging? Mary, I need your hugging. Mary, why you bugging?
Your eyes aren't just windows to your soul, they're also windows to your health. They let eye doctors identify early signs of health problems like heart disease and diabetes. That's why it's smart to have a yearly comprehensive eye exam. Go to thinkaboutyoureyes.com and find an eye doctor near you today.
And on the cool check-in, center stage on the mic, and we're putting it on wax. It's the new style.
4 and 3 and 2 and 1.
What up?
And when I'm on the mic, the suckers run.
Word.
Down that rockin' like 10 you ain't, and I got more juice. Got rhymes that are rough and rhymes that are slick. I'm not surprised you're on my dick.
D-E-A-S-T-I-E.
What up, my dick?
Oh, yeah. That's me. I got franks and pork and beans. Always bust the new routines. I get it. I got it. I know it's good. The rhymes are right. You wish you would. I'm never in training. My voice is not straining. People always whining and I'm sick of complaining. So I went into the locker room during classes. Went into your locker and I smashed your glasses. You're from St. August. I'm from Manhattan. You're jealous of me because your girlfriend is catting. Kick it!
Falling too many, married to none. And in case you're unaware, I carry a gun.
Stepping to the party, the place was overpacked. Saw the kid at this, my homeboy shot him in the back. Man, I had to get a beef up cause my phone is tapped. You better keep your mouth shut because I'm fully strapped. I got money in the bank, I can still get high. That's why your girlfriend thinks that I'm so fly.
I got money and juice, twin sisters in my bed. Their father had envy, so I shot him in the head.
If I play guitar, I'd be Jimmy Page. The girlies I like are underage.
Girls with boyfriends are the kinds I like. I'll steal your honey like I stole your bike.
My father, he's jealous cause I'm making that green. Gotta love the girlies' numbers from the places I've been. Kick it! You wanna know why? Because I'm October 31st, that is my date of birth. I got to the party, you know what I did? The smurf.
Taxing all females from coast to coast.
And when I get my fill, I'm chilly
We
mo.
ragtag girls back at the hotel.
And then we all switch places when I ring the bell. I chill a White Castle cause it's the best, but I fly a fat burger when I'm way out
Check
west. K-I-N-G-A-D. Whammy. All the fine ladies that on my jammy. Went to the prom or the fly blue rental.
Got 6 girls in my Lincoln Continental.
I met a girl at the party and she started to flirt.
I told her some rhymes and she pulled up a skirt.
Check it. Benz on back, got a high-powered jumbo. Rolled up the woman watched Columbo.
Let me clear my throat. Kick it over here, baby pop, and let all the fly skimmers feel the beat. Drop. Cooling on the corner on a hot summer's day. Just me and my posse and MCA. A lot of beer, a lot of girls, and a lot of cursing. 22 automatic on my person.
Got my hand in my pocket and my fingers on the trigger. My posse's getting big and my posse's getting bigger.
Some voices got treble, some voices got bass.
We got the kind of voices
That are in your face. Like the bun to the burger,
And like
the burger to the bun,
like the cherry
to the apple, to the peach,
to the plum.
I'm the king of the air, and I'm the king of the block. I'm MCA, and I'm the king at run.
Well, I'm mighty, I got all the fly juice.
I'm the checking at the party on the 40 deuce. Walking down the block with the fresh fly threads.
Beastie Boys by the biggest head.
Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. I am, as always, Chat Show. How are you? We've missed you horribly. So good, the vodka today. Oh, God, I was just in Marco Island, Florida. And let me just say to the fine folks there, what the hell? I did not know when my agent booked me into this room to perform stand-up that it was a fucking restaurant. And when I say that, I mean I did 15 minutes each show at the top, ripping into the restaurant, my agent, I now refer to as my former agent, and the owner of the club, who goes by the name Captain Brian. Doesn't own a boat, never did any time in the Navy, gave himself the name Captain Brian. And I pronounce it like that because, of course, it's abbreviated. Captain Brian named his place Off the Hook. Yeah, he went with a phrase that was relevant 4 or 5 years ago. And he attached his whole motif to Off the Hook. And I likened it to opening up a internet cafe in 1998 and calling it the Dial-Up Lounge. Because it felt that relevant. And I just ripped into Captain Brian. And there's a shark's head bursting through the back wall with a very angry look. And it took me a couple of shows to realize that there probably was a meeting, a creative meeting that went into what exactly that, because there's like wood slats coming off to really give the impression the shark is coming through. And the shark looks angry, like he burst with the...
Does the shark have sunglasses or a hat on?
That would have been hilarious.
Because then you would have seen everything.
Now we're talking zany and hijinks. Here you just have anger. Like the shark came through like this. Fuck, it's a restaurant. Of all the walls I could have busted through in Florida, they've already got plates and a cook. I'm fucked. That's what the expression said. But I literally did 15 minutes every night and then found my act could not follow. Improvising about how bad this place was.
Yeah.
I just an SOS to every performer whose agent tries to book them into Captain Brian's. Don't do it. I could see plates from the stage, stacked plates, because it was one of those open-air kitchens. I don't want to see plates when I'm performing. And I told them when I started 30 years ago was in a restaurant. Hakuna Matata.
I'm good with
Circle
plates.
of life.
Circle of life.
Now that Kevin's seen The Lion King for the first time, he's trying to like use the quotes. from,
Are
like,
you kidding?
We did the El Capitan.
You did the 3D?
We did the 3D experience, yeah.
Well,
He cried more than I did because I'm desensitized from it now because I've seen it so many
did you
times.
appreciate Nathan Lane?
I finally appreciated it. No, of course I did. Of course I did. He was fantastic.
All right.
Yeah, it's Matthew Broderick that I take umbrage with. Yeah, no, it was delightful. And that was the last thing I did before I went to Marco Island. So you're right, I should focus more on that than instead of wanting to kill Captain Brian. Sammy, you were missed horribly.
Oh, please.
Last show.
Ah.
Yeah. Which was a strange one for you to miss because it seemed like you wanted to be here.
More than anything.
And yet?
And yet I had to be the best man at a wedding in Boston.
And how'd that go?
So great.
Really?
Yeah.
What was, because you've been best man now twice in 6 months.
Twice.
And the last one was in Paris.
That is right. And it's
how would you compare the best man gift?
It was the same at both weddings.
What?
Yeah.
They got together.
They got together and gave me nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, really?
Yeah.
They
yeah,
don't
it was
understand
great.
the tradition of the best man getting something?
And I don't understand the tradition of not cursing in the speech, so we're going to call it a draw.
Oh. You unloaded both barrels, did you?
You know, if you're gonna get married just the once, I'm gonna take my chances.
Did you contemplate for a second ripping off the Paul Reiser moment from the end of Diner when he does?
did not.
He does one of the funnier.
I thought about it.
Can I just say this about you? We never liked you. We listen to you sometimes. We don't
Yeah.
understand what's coming out of your face.
Yeah. The thought crossed my mind.
Yeah.
But I kept it clean.
But you unloaded. Did you embarrass anyone other than the family?
Just myself.
Oh well.
And
Do they appreciate it when you travel to Paris and Boston for these weddings?
not as much as you'd think they
no
should.
gift. I don't understand. the
Yeah.
I'm going to turn into Larry David here. I don't understand the no gift. There's a protocol.
I don't know. I just don't know.
All right.
Maybe he's watching the show now and
Highlight
he'll
of
feel
the
terrible. Watching Boston Red Sox fans get very sad in Boston.
Wow.
Yeah.
You just went there.
I have to.
Our very own director, Mike Rodman, and Emily do not appreciate this.
As well they shouldn't, because I've been very vocal about this. I actually have no problem with the Red Sox as a baseball team.
I see.
It's their fans who bother me. Because they're the ones who could have critically injured me when I came to see a game at their fine stadium.
And you were suited up as a
Fan, not cheering for the Boston Red Sox.
But you just wear your hat, right? Or do you wear like?
I wasn't wearing any gear.
Oh.
And you weren't. You were gearless.
I was cheering against them
Gearless.
for the opponent of the day.
You would stand up cheering.
I stood up, a grand slam in the top of the 8th inning was scored to give the opposing team the lead, and I was excited.
You stood up and applauded, and then didn't understand why the fans might have taken umbrage.
Umbrage is one thing. Full beer,
No.
C battery, as hard like a bullet out of a gun.
Well, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Now, did they pack the C batteries before they came to the park waiting?
Now, I don't know. Maybe they could.
That's an odd choice of projectile.
I'm guessing it came out of a transistor radio.
Sure, because it's 1948.
Maybe.
What are you talking about?
People bring the radios to the game to listen to the audio.
Right, why would they use their iPhone?
Why would they use their iPhone? Well, you
Ridiculous.
can't get the audio now with the
All right.
MLB blackouts, but it's not the
It's a
point.
C battery
A C
tossed at
battery
your
hit
head.
me really hard right at the base of the back. And at first I was very upset and everything, and it didn't occur to me until after I'd left the game. If that had hit me in the head or higher on the spine,
Hospital battle.
we'd have a little incident.
We'd have ourselves a lawsuit.
We'd have ourselves a major incident at Fenway. But,
buddy.
none of the Red Sox threw the battery at me. It was the fans.
All right. No, the players didn't throw anything at you?
The players did not.
So we don't have any problem with the
Well, they don't have very good pitching right now. So.
They couldn't hit you even if they wanted.
Could not.
The whole thing was a setup for that joke. I feel
Wasn't
used.
even a good joke.
I feel used like
Wasn't
a prison
even a good
bitch.
joke. It's a very true story with a witness.
Oh, and a punchline. Jamie,
Oh, man.
Yes.
you want to share any of your horrible weekend?
I had a weekend from hell.
You really did. And
Well, you did too, though, at Cat and Brian's.
Yes.
There's this neighborhood Siamese cat harassing my cat, Edie, through the window. Mao.
Turns out Chinese for cat.
He's making these horrible sounds. Through the window for like 3 hours. It was awful.
That's not an exaggeration, by the way. I have it on video.
J-Mac had to shoo him away with like broom.
A broom. And we're cat lovers.
Couldn't get the TV upstairs to work. My pants ripped in the crotch. Oh, my phone died.
iPhone shutting off all over Los Angeles.
Well, no, my phone died like 2 days before that, like on its own, and I had to back it up.
But AT&T,
yeah,
I understand, was a big problem in LA while I was
this is
gone.
correct.
Yeah, all over. And they, of course, were called out on it all over the internet, and their response was, sorry?
Is that any better or worse than, is Netflix still a sponsor?
No.
Oh, great. So, we're raising the price 60%. We hate you. Okay, we're sorry. Are you doing anything about the price? No. How is that a response?
That was an interest, and it really was an announcement response.
Yeah.
We're sorry.
We're sorry. And
You know, when we made a mistake on this show and thought we could charge people, at least we apologized and then said we're no longer charging people.
we turned it back.
Yeah.
Nope, not
We
Netflix.
turned back the clock, letting them know it was their decision.
Not only we apologize, we're not going to change your price, but we are going to make it a little bit more complicated now for you to get both things like you used to. Now it's two separate companies almost.
Right.
What are they doing?
Well,
What are they doing?
they're trying to reinvent the future, and good luck.
They had a handle on it. It was theirs to ruin. I don't know.
I invented Netflix in high school. The technology just wasn't there yet.
See?
I did, because it was back with VHS, and I'm like, they should have a video store that delivers. But how would you know what the titles were, and how would you like return them? This was before, like and everybody had the computer in their household. I tried to think of it like way before its time.
You were 16.
Yeah, probably around 16.
I invented pornography.
No, Chris Malick did.
Wow. That just happened. All right, remember, if you want to write to us any questions at all for anyone on the staff, write to contact at kevinpollakchatshow.com. That's contact at kevinpollakchatshow.com. We have an Ask Kevin. This one comes from Aaron Harlow. Look at that, there's a graphic with a table and a desk. This from Aaron Harlow, ask at Aaron Harlow on the Twitter. As we all know, you are the king of practical jokes. Well, hardly. My question is, what is the best practical joke that someone has played on you? Did you get them back? Hi to Jamie and my pals in the chat room. Be back next week. And then some sort of crazy emoticon.
We're letting them give shout-outs now in their questions?
She's one of the true fans.
All right.
Kathy and Jimmy was a guest on the show, and I think we might have discussed it then. She probably got me worse than anyone ever. There was an attraction at Disney World for a while, deemed too scary.
Alien
Encounter. With the late Jeffrey Jones, myself, and Kathy and Jimmy.
And Tyra Banks.
As Gherkinhead aliens, Gherkinhead prosthetics that took way too long to apply, and it was a 2-day shoot. And at the end of day 1, I said, I don't know how I'm going to get through day 2. I don't care how much money is offered next time. Cut to a movie. Whole 10 yards before I did it again, like an idiot. But I said this will never happen again under any circumstances, and I'm not a complainer. When I'm on a job, I am not ever going to be that actor who sits in the makeup chair at day 2 and starts complaining about the hours. That's one of the things that kills me about making movies. There's a million out-of-work actors, and they're all bitching and moaning, and you get them in that makeup chair day 2, and they're like, can you fucking believe they brought me in at 8 a.m. and didn't use me till 1? Shut it, please. But 3 hours of this thing, and my problem is they covered the ears. Oh God, when they cover the ears and you can't hear and everything's in an echo, you immediately turn into Albert Brooks. Is it me? Am I crazy? I can't hear anything. I'm gonna go lie down. tell you what, get the gherkin off my head and I'll come back to work. So I was in such pain, and I would only complain to Kathy and Jimmy because I didn't want anyone to know that I was couldn't function. So at the end of day one, they're now spending an hour and a half to take the thing off. And I'm saying, help me get through tomorrow. Kathy, please, 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 please. Cut to morning day 2. They're halfway through the 3-hour process of putting the gherkin stuff back on. And the director comes in and says, how you guys doing? You know, it's the good morning thing. Got terrible news. They screwed up the film. Yesterday's shoot is fucked. We need you guys for another day. And I lost it. I lost it. I let the director know that was not only not happening, but that he should stop talking. There were lawsuits that were just waiting to happen. Because I could not function. I literally lost my shit until I saw Kathy laughing. And I said, how is this funny to you? And she said, Pepper, which she had nicknamed me, Pepper, relax. I set this up. It's a joke. And I could have killed her. I mean, I really did lose it. And it is easily the most embarrassed I've ever been in a professional setting. So there we have it. There is the answer to your question.
And now she calls you Pepper.
And now she calls me Pepper for life. And I guess it's from Pepper Gomez, the wrestler from the 50s. I don't know where she got the name from. Is this another Ask Kevin from Creativity Fail? All right. Has doing your own chat show changed the way you approach, I think there's an extra R there, the way you approach making appearances on other people's shows? That's a good question. I do find that I am intrigued about how people go about asking questions more than I'm not sure I was paying attention before. Now I'm uber attentive to the gathering of questions in an attempt to, because in talk shows late at night they don't do this, but the shows that do a version of this, because Tom Snyder was great, Bob Costas was amazing, Larry King was horrific. And Charlie Rose was no pre-interview, and a guy came from journalism, so he had his research was great, and then just too dry. But I'm acutely aware now of that process where I was not paying attention to it at all. These are far too sincere answers, I think.
Are you trying to put people to sleep,
I think
Kevin?
I need to mix it up. So when I answer the questions, I need to have Caracas. And we asked you, the viewers and listeners from around the world and then some, to tell us how you do KPCS, Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. This from Mike from Central California. Another 17 minutes, we'll get to our guest. I'm apparently one of the few fans that still watches your show, although I work Sunday, so I cannot watch it live. I download both the audio and video on iTunes in case I won't be able to watch, and then watch whenever I can, anywhere from the bathtub to my desk at work. Pictured? Do we have a picture of this guy? Oh, there he is.
I'm so glad it was not him in the bathtub watching. That's where I thought that's
a hell of a bathtub rig.
It is. This is a hell of a bathtub
So there we
rig.
are in his iPhone, in the same hat. That's pretty fantastic. Let's see what else we can glean from this guy's life, from this photo that he was taking.
It's like an infinity photo.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. He's got
he's got keyless entry, I
keyless
think.
entry, and he's got a little stress ball there that he squeezes.
He's not married.
And he's definitely not married.
Yeah.
Good
No.
with Jim. Jim picked up his no wedding ring. Wow. Mrs. Colombo would not have got that.
And dude, he's getting a Dell.
And he's
Boy, is
got
there a reference.
He's got himself a Dell computer.
There's a little bit of a David one.
Okay. I've also got at least one friend hooked on the Larry King game. One? You got the one? And he started listening to old shows to hear them. I've enjoyed your show since you showed up on my radar with the appearance of Nathan Fillion, and have caught up on at least half your previous episodes. Wow. We're up to 128. That's a lot of catching up, sir. Thanks for putting this one on the interwebs for all of us. You're very welcome, Mike and SenCal. P.S. Here's my Larry King entry. What? He got himself a Larry King entry? I don't think we're going to include the Larry King entry. I think we have a separate Larry King game. Nice try. Trying to slip that in, you son of a bitch. And now the Larry King game. We have a winner this week. That's why I didn't want to give anything, to the other guy. Because this Kenny Hayner, because that's a name, is going to win himself a T-shirt. Kevin Pollak's Chat Show t-shirt. Yes, that he'll wear with pride. And send us a photo, Kenny. Kenny, actually what we need is your shirt size and address so we can send this to you. But here's his offering of the Larry King game, created by our own Jamie Foxx.
19 diggity, Brooklyn, New York. Little Wally Cronkite asked me why the breading on his chicken McNuggets was not attached to the delicious meat inside. My reply? That's the way it is. The little punk has been using that line ever since, and until he gets me credit, he's dead to me. Dead. Sugarland, Texas, you're on.
What year did he use in that quote?
19 diggity?
19 diggity.
Because the chicken McNugget wasn't invented until 1983.
That's your biggest problem with this Larry King game? By the way, let me just say, from an actor's standpoint, that was an excellent read you did. There was no direction in there, splitting up the deads at the end. That was all you, Kevin. Well done.
Those are your notes?
There was no
If I were to do it again,
no,
you wouldn't say squeeze it out a little?
We got it perfect. I don't like to waste the film.
Oh. All right, thank you, Mr. Haney. I am, again, write to contact at KevinPollakChatShow.com for future feedback and whatnot. I am unbelievably excited and thrilled and humbled by our guest today. We've had, I tried to count last night, 5 Academy Award winners prior to this, but we've not had one. We've not had one that was thrice at the first time at the plate. In fact, as it turns out, no one in the history of the motion picture business, first time as a writer-director, has taken home Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Film. So you're probably wondering, what's he doing here? We have photos, which you will not see as long as he remains for the entire interview. Please welcome Mr. James L. Brooks. In putting together the dossier, first of all, thank you. In putting together the dossier, there was a couple of things that I wanted to jump all around with. The first one being, how the hell did you get Louis Armstrong as an interview, as working on the high school newspaper, or is that completely fabricated?
Oh no, it's not. I used to get incredible people. The
family's not in the business.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a high school of 300 students. I was severely resented for it. I was beaten for it because my picture was on the front page of the paper.
I'm sure.
Every single issue. But the Louis Armstrong is the great meat of my life. I mean, I asked him a good question. I think I asked him a good question. A high school kid, I think I asked him a good question. How do you take care of your lips?
Wow.
Isn't that a good question?
Yeah.
The answer was like 15, 16 minutes long. And it was great.
Like he'd never been asked.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. But
how do you even get approach, or can you?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what baffled me.
I don't know.
How did this high
school
school
I got Orange Bowl tickets once in a strange way, too. I don't know.
Yeah, these things just happen.
Desperation. I don't know.
And also, tell me about the kind of effect someone like Nicholson May had on you in terms of the style of comedy that they were doing. There are certain aspects of, we find these moments of inspiration, and the few people I've spoken to who got to see them live, and I'm not even assuming you did, but...
I did.
Yeah.
So an evening with Nicholson May. I did.
And so I've always been uber curious about that experience, because there's something about that kind of act live that I would think never gets recreated.
Yeah, I don't know how to talk about it, but it's not in the framework of anybody who had any idea that he'd get a job anywhere related to the business they were in.
Right.
I mean, that was not me at all.
Right.
But they were crazy great. They were crazy great. And she was, if you liked comedy and women,
yeah.
you were in love with her. So you wanted to go see her because you were in love with her.
Madly in love, yeah.
And they, I guess, I would argue, greatest chemistry between a comedy team ever, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you named your company after Gracie, so one has to argue that you found some sort of chemistry there between her and George.
Yeah.
But you're right, in terms of on stage, and also there was an equality that didn't exist with George and Gracie. That was an act. These two seemed to create moments in time that...
I think you could play their album and get pretty much as many laughs today. I think so.
I have to.
I mean, you could put it to the test. I saw Lenny Bruce live, which was, just where he changed the world. Where you do woo woo, he was changing the world. He was changing the world.
Where in the city?
I think so. The name Blue. I think I actually got to the Blue Angel. I think that's where it was.
Yeah.
And
Young, he did all kinds of characters and
he did comedy differently than it had ever been done before.
Right.
Than it had ever been done before.
Acting out scenes and really taking departures away from...
But the acting was extraordinary. I mean, when he got to it, like Pryor after him.
Yeah.
When Pryor used to really act it. Yeah.
So you were a fan of the live comedy pretty early.
But not like people say, not like, comedy club kind of thing. It was just these
certain acts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certain acts that at an early age caught your attention and yeah, you're right. There's a reason. There's the comedy fan, which is they go anywhere to see anyone really. And there's quite a difference between
transporting. I'd say it was transporting. I'd say they took you out of yourself. No matter what was going on in your life, you were able to fully leave your life, which was always a good idea for me in those days. Fully leave your life and just experience them.
Yeah, it was. What kind of movies were doing that for you?
They weren't really. I mean, it was funny. It's not. I was mostly plays. I used to second act. You know what that is. And I used to do that just regularly. I mean, just maybe 3 times a week, and and I used to read plays. And
you were reading, according to the dossier, comedy. I don't know if it was short stories or if it was.
Well, I read a lot. I read theater. I read plays. I like to read plays. I used to have a magazine called Theater Arts that had a play in it, in full in every issue. I used to read that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're kind of insular in that regard in terms of how this comes to you. That was one thing that was striking. There was no real influence around. You kind of took this all upon yourself. I mean, for me, I did voices by myself.
Influence means that you have a certain innate ambition and some notion that you can take on something from somebody and use it in some way. I had none of that.
Right. Let's
be clear. It. I'd go, I'd see it, and that would be it.
It was like a hobby.
My life would go on at the factory.
Yeah, this would not. Right, this was not. I was not going to learn from these people how to do it.
Yeah, I wanted to write. I did want to write, and I did, but I wanted to write, and used to, whenever I got the money, take a workshop someplace and do this stuff, and yeah.
And your sister gets you the job at CBS as a page.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the world firsthand from...
But that was that thing where somebody...
Yeah.
You have an in. I mean, it was insane that my little family had an in any place. But the in was my sister's best friend was the secretary to the guy who hired pages for CBS. And at that time, you needed to be not only a college graduate, but a good college graduate. And I was a messed up kid.
Non-college graduate.
And she got me the job.
Yeah. And there must have been a long line of people wanting those jobs.
Oh, no, it was amazing, yeah.
Raised in New Jersey, so this is now this, Sammy, also raised in Jersey?
Fort Lee, represent.
Your parents there now, brother
yes.
Max?
Currently watching the show from Fort Lee, New Jersey. I'm assuming.
Big shout out to the Fort Lee.
Well, yeah.
Bergen?
North Bergen.
North Bergen.
We're like neighbors.
Practically.
Yeah, we could have high-fived.
Absolutely.
For God's sakes. So the idea of also this occupation in the city at this network, I would think that wakes you up pretty fast in the morning to go to work. Was there a sense of got to be excitement? And
it was amazing. It was the first sophisticated people I met because the other pages were sophisticated.
College
I mean, there was
grads.
but there were a range of people. It was first time I knew gay people and they had great times and talked about them.
Right.
And we were in this little. Much smaller than this room, 13 of us before you went on your assignments. And I think they were like all friends. And they were all friends who were doing things I never imagined people doing. I mean, they went out in New York and stuff like that. So it was a big deal. I was very naive at the time.
And then eventually, I'm sure there's some social gathering with these people outside of work.
Yeah. We used to. Well, we had a bar that we went to.
Right.
You know, that was really sort of an upscale bar, and it was slightly above the minimum wage, I guess, but just slightly. But we used to go there almost en masse and hang out, and quite some, a long time.
And that must have been pretty great, because it seems like it was the first of its kind for you as well, which is incredibly.
First that there's life out there.
Right. And a level of sophistication, as you said. It's those early days that I think inform, as you said before, you would see these great comedians live without a sense of inspiration, like oh, well, I can do that. I'll do that someday. And now it feels like...
And the other pages wanted to be actors, things like... I never knew anybody like this who actually entertained an ambition for...
Right. And does the writing, when they would say, what do you want to do, was your instinct at that point to say, I want to be a writer?
I
mean, just to answer the question.
In all honesty, my ambition was to be able to make a living.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what I wanted to do. And in my brief time in college, I had majored in public relations, not knowing what public relations were. And I think my reasoning was that if nobody knew what it was, I'd have a chance to get into the field, because nobody else would be taking this as a major.
That's not bad logic.
Yeah.
And then I found it kind of one of those magical moments, according to the dossier anyways, where some news copywriter goes on vacation.
Desk assistant, copy boy,
copy boy.
Yes.
Literally that moment?
Oh, yes, you were there, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I've only seen that in the movie Copy Boy. And that was you racing by to grab it. Well, so that's an extraordinary transition. Again, is the thinking, well, it's the old when the director asks the actor, can you ride horseback? And the actor says, I've got a saddle in my car. When the notion is to go from page to...
I got a chance to fill in for 2 weeks as a vacation replacement for a copy boy at CBS News.
Right.
There is no way to render what CBS News was in those days. I don't think there's nothing to compare it to now. There's nothing with as much importance, influence, integrity, sense of purpose. There's nothing like it. The people who had seen us through the Second World War were still there.
Yeah.
And I took the job. I was, it's actually true that Edward R. Murrow was still there. Edward R. Murrow was still there. Okay, now it's impossible, if people don't know who he is, to render who he was.
And what he meant.
But he's just somebody who regularly changed the universe for the positive. And he was like charismatic, great looking, tortured with purpose, tortured with high purpose.
No,
God, I don't know anybody tortured with high purpose right now.
It's so hard to find because the purpose is not quite underlined.
And there was also Eric Severide. Now, nobody knows who Eric Severide was. He was a great-looking, brilliant guy who wrote an autobiography that's quite rich and quite good and filled with experience, and he was 21 when he wrote it. That's who he was. There were these gods. There were these gods there, and they were they're the people that ended McCarthyism. There's just no way. And I used to stand in front of the board with their home phone numbers, and I used to just memorize their home phone numbers.
Thinking.
And now, I knew the damn number, man.
And no ambition to call.
Yeah.
That's an interesting moment. To memorize those numbers, knowing you wouldn't have the nerve to actually.
I used to watch, and Murray used to have a drink downstairs every day, and when you were in the elevator with him, but I don't know who to compare it to. You're there with an absolute god. Somebody wrote, there was a woman who spent 12 years doing a biography of him, and I saw her on a show. And
12 years.
Yeah, really 12 years. I mean, that's a literal truth. And somebody asked her, what was the most interesting thing you found out about him in those 12 years? And she thought, and she said he was worth the legend, that he deserved it, you know. And,
That's pretty great.
yeah.
That's pretty.
So that was, you know, it was dazzling. The guy I replaced did not come back from his vacation to this insanely sought after job, and since I was there I kept it. And now I was somebody who had never gone to college but now had a real Ivy League job. I mean,
Yeah,
a real
truly.
journalism school, graduate school people had that job.
And I was also kind of surprised that no one asked. At some point when you start actually researching and writing a little bit of news, if
I was there.
you
know.
would already skip those steps. And so probably assumptions were made and nobody stopped to go, wait a second, did anyone check this kid's degree?
I'm convinced I had some pity factor going for me, but I mean that seriously.
He's fine, he'll catch up, that sort of thing. But you
Don't fire little Timmy.
Not with that leg of his. That's pretty funny. Pretty terrific. And how long before you feel a sense? I mean, you obviously walk at a certain point fairly on, walking in the building, you start to feel like this is where I work. But how long does it take before you feel this is where I belong, or does that even happen?
No. And well, that I think everybody can relate to. I mean, it's a long time you're here doing anything before it's real to you. There used to be that thing where, you know, if somebody walked into the hottest restaurant in Hollywood and said, "Will the fraud please step outside?" you'd empty the place any night of the week, you know. Because I think everybody feels that a little. It's not real. It's
right. Yeah, I've noticed the bigger movie stars who act like movie stars, that is to say, cause trouble on set, it's from sheer insecurity and feeling like a fraud. It's not from actually
sometimes it's wanting to hurt people.
Well, yeah, sure. There are a percentage of actually mean, awful people. But I see this level of insecurity at every stage in terms of I belong. That's a hard one.
I don't, you know, and I wouldn't even call it insecurity. And I'm not sure it's a bad thing. I think it's a common experience, you know.
Human experience.
Yeah. It's.
You're right. There's a certain level of healthiness to it.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever think you belong because then it's over.
Yeah.
David Steinberg sitting next to...
It's too bad, man, because I just felt like I belonged on my way in here today.
Well, man.
It was such a tentative, fragile feeling. I wasn't going to say...
Fleeting. So very, very fleeting. So in the pocket of all of that magic, how the hell do they get you to go west, young man? I mean...
No, the amazing thing to me is that I had a chance to write documentaries. I was working for a radio station at that point, still in the CBS thing. I still had a CBS News union job.
Amazing.
Union job, making more money than and where I had that thing about making a living, I had sort of gotten there. I made a living. I was self-supporting.
Living in the city.
Yes, at that time living in the city, yeah. And I still don't know what allowed me to give up that union job, which was the first security I'd ever had, really of almost any sort.
Yeah.
And the woman I was married to at the time was enormously helpful in doing that. And we did come out here. They give it was a wall for documentaries, and I came out and
another giant, David Walper.
Yeah, and 6 months later I was laid off, and I was on the West Coast, and that's what happened. Yeah.
6 months later, laid off, and is the thought process, well, we go back to New York now, or it's just
no? The bridges had been burned. There was no union job left. There was the bridges. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was here.
How scary? Ridiculous? Or you're already starting to meet people in those 6 months?
My wife at the time was working. She was supporting us.
Uh-huh.
I had these days where I'd go down to the criminal courts and look at trials, or I'd go up to the beach and just read books. So the days were not horrible because I was doing these things that sort of interested me.
Right.
And I got one pickup job because again, I think the pity factor working for me.
Sure.
And it was to do the narration for a National Geographic special, the War of Wasps and Bees. And I had...
You did that? That was you?
I had a phobia of insects. I had a phobia of insects, but I mean a very pronounced one. And it was the only job I could get. And you had a moviola with a screen like this, and it was 16 millimeter film, and all you did was see these mothers eat each other and just all day long and expel each other, and it got me over my phobia. It was like aversion therapy, and it got me over that.
Holy crap.
And I was writing, and then I was trying to get a job at a news station here, which I failed to do. And I was trying...
Even with those credits, where you come from?
Yeah, I wasn't able to do it. And then, since I'd always wanted to write, and there was nothing I was getting, I think I wrote some spec scripts that didn't get me anywhere either.
Right.
And but I had friends from Walper, and one of my friends there, whose real name on his birth certificate was Bud Weiser. One of my friends there, Bud Weiser, had a party on a New Year's Eve, and towards the end of the evening, this gorgeous couple came in tuxedo and gown, and it was Alan Burns, and he said, finally, real people, because he had been with muckety mucks all evening long, and I think he had created 2 shows that went on television at the time. He was pretty established as a television writer.
Yeah.
And it was just somebody I met at a party, and he said, I created another show, and I'll mention your name to them. Oh, God, I'm forgetting this. This is my first comedy writing job. And do you know who Fernandel is? Do you know the name Fernandel? Okay, this is how ancient. Nobody knows the name Fernandel.
I do not.
Okay, Fernandel was a French clown, sort of, that made hit movies that were seen worldwide. Okay, he had a face. He had a very funny face, and he was like. Do you know who Jacques Tati is? He was like that.
Find him, you guys, and give me an image. I have a feeling I know who you're talking about.
Okay. Again, this a guy who felt bad because he had brought me out here, and I was out of work now, and Alan Landsberg. So he was asked in some strange way by. I'm going to ask you, all these people. This guy, the black sheep of the Coty perfume family was trying to get into show business and do a show for Fernandel, and they asked him if they knew many American comedy writers. There was nothing that I had never written comedy except the spec stuff. And they gave me the job, and I was in France, my first job, where I had a translator, and Geg, do you know Geg? And they'd explain to me why my jokes didn't work, and I met Fernandel. And I think the pilot was made. It never amounted to anything. But I had this glamorous writing life for 4 weeks, and I was back in L.A.
Holy God!
And they paid you with francs when there were like lots of francs to the dollar, and you had this fistful of. It was like amazing. Yeah.
Swept away to like a
with a translator.
Oh, yeah. God! And they weren't sure if you were getting the joke.
They would explain to me why that doesn't work. Why it doesn't work in France, which is
amazing education. Alan Burns. Now, his background was from stand-up originally. No.
No, he never did stand-up.
No, he never did. Oh,
no, he had. I think he did. He had done early animation. He had worked for. I think he drew Captain Crunch. Is that the?
Yeah.
He drew the cereal guy. He drew that. I know he'd done that.
So he come from animation.
And yeah. And
well, that perchance meeting at that party with him kind of set things a little.
Well, he's just. I mean, he's like a great guy, Alan, and I got he actually got me an assignment on the show.
Right. My Mother the Car.
My Mother the Car was a show.
Yeah. Jerry Van Dyke.
Jerry Van Dyke.
Right. Which, by the way, was not how he wanted it pronounced. He wanted no implication in the pronunciation of his name.
You never saw anybody score better with a nightclub act in Vegas than Jerry Van Dyke lip syncing.
Really?
And he was funny lip syncing, yes.
Wow.
Mule Train. He lip synced Mule Train.
Johnny.
And he had a little thing, just a little pencil with a little piece of string on it, and that was the crack of the whip. Screams.
Frankie Lane? Mule Train?
Yes.
Jerry Lewis started with a lip-syncing bit. I started with a lip-syncing
Is that right?
bit. It's a hell of a way to break in. If there's a natural timing there that people can't believe you've pulled off this magic trick. But I never thought to do a tiny whip. My
Well,
mother.
Andy Kaufman actually did it at a certain point in an extraordinary artistic way.
Yeah.
Anything can be great. There you go, buddy.
Yeah. Speaking of that, in the casting process of Taxi, the legendary, if not lore, hopefully, I don't even care if it's apocryphal, was that Danny DeVito came in with the script in his hand for a Louis De Palma audition, threw the script down and said, "This is shit," and walked out.
Not quite.
Close,
But
though?
very, very close.
Wow.
Very close.
How sought after, first of all, was that role? Because on paper, it's got to be the role.
Well, here's the thing. When you talk about, there are real breaks that you catch.
Yeah.
And well, here's a series of breaks. Okay, I'll tell it.
Sure.
Here's a series of breaks that happened for Taxi. We're coming off the Mary Tyler Moore show. We had started our own, 4 of us who were writers on the show.
Weinberger and
Stan Daniels and Dave Davis and myself started this group and made a thing with Paramount, and we're going to do stuff for ABC. And we saw a magazine article that about a cab company in New York where everybody wanted to be something else, the actors or whatever it was, and fighters and all that stuff. And we liked the article, and Grant owned it. Grant, the guy who the 4 of us had just left.
Grant Tinker.
Yeah. And the best boss anybody has ever had. The best boss anybody has ever had. The last holder of the Protestant ethic in the United States of America. He's just an extraordinary man.
Right.
And he gave it to us. He just gave it to us. The 4 guys who just left him, he gave it to us. Okay, so we took that and we went to New York to research the cab company. And we stayed in the cab company like 16, 18 hours. And I've done research that's gone on for a year.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever gotten anything more valuable in those years that I've gotten valuable things as we did in that 16 hours there.
Wow.
Because, first of all, we saw the cab dispatcher, somebody gave him a bribe for a clean cab, and he's going, and that was Louis De Palma right there. That's how Louis De Palma was born. That character would not have happened unless we saw that.
Right.
And we didn't know how to make what turned out to be the Judd Hirsch character a hero. And then we waited until the end of the shift and went and had coffee with some cab drivers, and they waited for sort of a pretty charismatic young guy who came in, and they were all talking as they did in the article about what they wanted to do. And he said, "Me, I'm a cab driver," and then we realized that was the heroic thing, that was the backbone of Judd's character. So we walked out of there with the really the soul of 2 key characters. We wrote the part. Danny came in to read, and in character, he did say, which of you guys wrote this shit? And
wouldn't you just want to own a room like that?
And I think
Every actor-
I truly, it's no fun to exaggerate any of this stuff.
Sure.
I think literally he had the job before the audition. Before he started doing the lines, because he did the lines after that.
Because he said that.
Because it was a guy, yeah, it was great.
Every actor wants to have that kind of nerve. I remember at some point, because I was coming from stand-up comedy, I had no formal training as an actor, and I just wanted to learn how to own the room, thinking that would help. And for a while, I would walk into a room, and there'd be 6 or 8 executives, and I'd say, "Whose office is this?" And someone would raise their hand, and I'd say, "We could probably get you a bigger office, though, right?" And you smiled, but 70% of the time they went, "Okay, you got the pages?"
But you kept doing it with each audition?
Yes. Until I found one person who smiled, and it was Ed Weinberger. They say we have a photo of Fernandel. Let's see if this rings a bell. There he is,
man. That's him.
Beautiful. Now I totally remember.
By the way, you get that he's funny just looking at him, right?
This was not a dancer. That was a comedian, a French comedian. Speaking of Grant Tinker, and you listen, he landed Mary Tyler Moore as husband and
How do you
wife.
mean that? Oh.
Yeah, well, literally, as husband and wife. So already, he's from the outside world assumed to be possess greatness, but he ran a studio or a network, or both.
Both.
Yeah.
He, let's see, how dull is it to talk about somebody who really was a good guy?
Well, there's moments, you know.
He was funny. He was great looking. He, whenever we had any athletic events, he'd tend to win the athletic event. He'd tend to be the best tennis player. He'd hit a home run in the softball game. He had a sense of fairness. And you know, there's always, I've known a few people in my life where good manners become like, holy shit, I get why people want to have good manners. It's just great to be around.
Yeah.
He had that kind of consideration. And, you know, in the best sense of the word, sort of a tortured guy, you know, I mean, just in terms of caring and having an intensity level that he, you know, but he didn't, you know, he didn't show pain, didn't have back problems, didn't, you know,
Right.
Good to employees. And like the negotiations, when Alan and I would re-up every year, and the show was going very well, the negotiations usually ended with Grant, when he got really pissed off, would say, give them whatever the hell they want.
That's how.
And then we'd run and say, no. That would usually be the end of the negotiation, because that would be him getting furious and saying, you know,
if that's what it takes.
And he was funny.
Yeah.
And I mean, he had a real sense of humor. He, everybody who ever worked for him loved the ass off this guy. Everybody. And he was not a hangout guy. He was a dignified guy. East, you know, Dartmouth, you know, all that stuff. And had an authority to him. So he was the vice president of Fox Television when I had done Room 222 there, and Alan was my friend who came in to, you know, the same Alan Burns who came in to produce it after I created the show and for some reason left. I think I stayed for a year or something like that. And Grant had the idea of teaming us up because Mary had an on-the-air commitment. And so we teamed up, and we had, and he was not allowed to say, because of his job at Fox, that he was part of this company that was doing the show for CBS. It was not good. So that all had to be in the closet.
Wow.
So we were two writers who came in, and really, maybe the only time it'll ever happen, we hired the accountants, because there was nobody who could show up and do it but us.
Right.
And then we did one pilot that I think probably we had an idea that wasn't any good, and we went to pitch it to the network, and they nodded and smiled, and we left the room, and they said, fire those guys to Grant, and he didn't. And
wow.
That kind of support,
forget it.
When on the face of it, there were times when it didn't look like we warranted it.
Right.
You know, he'd always give you. And then he became the head of NBC.
Right.
He was the chairman of NBC. Again, you won't find everybody who worked for him just thought, wow, it was great to get to spend part of my life with this guy as my boss.
Right. Well, now, in all fairness to your talent, sir, and Alan's, what you guys did with Room 222, which, by the way, was a huge bonding thing for my mother and I. She wanted to be Diane Carroll, and I couldn't get over how fantastic.
Diane Carroll was not on the series.
Not Diane Carroll.
What if I had let that pass?
That would have been horrible.
Would that have been generous or
Everyone
cruel?
in the chat room.
Which would it be?
Well, first of all, Karen Valentine.
Yes, okay, let's
Yeah.
come back. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
Why am I thinking Diane Carroll? Because she had the show around the same time, must be. Michael Constantine. I remember the whole process of this, because, you know, when later the goofy, ridiculous Welcome Back Carter version happens, it was only a reminder for those of us who got brought into this world. My point being, this was very dicey, original, and...
It was the second time by a few months an African-American had been lead in a series on television, on American television.
Bill Cosby, the other one, in I Spy?
Yes, and I think Diane Carroll, who you mentioned,
Right.
I think she might have made it by a few
I
months.
think that's what I was thinking in terms, because it was Lloyd Haynes.
That's right.
Right? Well, this show was the world to me for quite a while, sir. Lloyd Haynes and Karen Valentine was the spark plug. But my point was that you were sort of a part of a new guard, if you will, of this show is unlike anything we've seen before. And that, you know how rare that is. All the networks say they want that, and then none of them do. Please don't make it too different, because then we don't have anything to compare it to. We don't have any way to market it. It scares us. And I wondered when I was going through this if that had, how much that informed Grant Tinker's decision to bring you guys in, because you were going to go on to create a show, I'm going to dare say the first of its kind once again, revolving around a single career-driven woman in her early 30s?
30, I think, exactly.
Yeah. Which, to my understanding, I mean, there was that girl, but she was anything but single, so, which you also worked on, I think. So that seems so also ridiculously cutting edge and not really allowed, almost, as much as a big part of Room 222 was. So did you get a sense that it had anything to do with why?
Well, certainly you felt that way on Room 222 because it was because the race thing was so new and so much an area of nervousness, and there was, you know, I've had some great bosses. There's a guy named Gene Reynolds, a director, who's one of the two key figures in MASH later on, and we had a pilot. My pilot involved him helping this black kid and sort of an ending and the network said they do the script but wanted the kid to be white because they thought if a black guy helped a white kid it would
help bridge the,
and you know, and it was, and you know, I would have done anything anybody said at all at that time, and Gene fought it successfully, as few people would have. This was when networks, well, they were always all powerful, but they had to worry about sponsors who were also all powerful at that time. And Gene always fought the good fight. And yeah.
That must have been somewhat inspiring to see that take place at a time when you're saying, you as the creator were thinking, it's fine. We'll get other battles.
Well, I had a joke that worked best if the kid was black at the end of the show, at the end of the pilot. Yeah.
That's where your concern was.
Yeah, that's properly.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
So, I guess Room 22 then is 222 is your first.
Should I stop correcting?
No. It's better than when they do.
Yeah, it normally comes from me, and it's not pretty.
Room 222 though is the first sort of standing on your own too, as it were. I mean, Alan certainly is a partner of sorts. And the show was, to my fanship recollection, a huge hit. I don't know what was going on among.
It was very well received.
Not Mary Tyler Moore hit, but it ran for 5-6 years or so.
5 years, I think. Yeah, it was very well received. Yeah.
And so, what are you going through at that point? Because it seems like so much of what we do is about the next job, whatever you're doing.
Well, it was great. Gene was great. Gene taught me a lot. Gene was the one who made research a part of my life from there on in, which was a big deal for me because he kept on sending me back to the high school, kept on sending me back so we'd be authentic.
That's pretty great.
We didn't have a laugh track, which was, I think we did have a laugh track that nobody could hear. Because there was some technical thing where the network really insisted we have a laugh track. So it was such a light laugh track that it was the laugh track of a show that's bombing. So that was our laugh track. But you didn't become aware, you weren't aware that you were hearing a track. And
I don't remember a track.
So and that was enormously important because it allowed a different kind of writing. If you weren't putting in a track, you could write it differently.
It felt like a dramedy.
Yeah, I guess that's where. And
also single camera.
Single camera, with Gene being a great director, with great concentration on the acting. You know, just people really caring about that. Gene really fighting that the show have some kind of purpose, and there was a spotlight on us. There weren't, it wasn't, I think, first romance between two African Americans in an American television show. I mean, there were just casual first, one after the other. It was almost automatically with that show, and then I brought in friends that I knew who were also writing it, and it was just great. I mean, it remains when a television series that's working is, there's no competition for that being the best job in show business.
Yeah, yeah. Especially, I think. You certainly created a situation by the time you get to The Simpsons where to be able to say to a network, there will never be any notes.
I think that's true of any show that achieves a certain kind of success.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure it ever happens on day one. I think you have to prove yourself.
I heard a
first.
great story about Louis C.K. that this really good guy who runs FX came to him and said you could have two kind of shows, one with this budget where we'll have something to say, and one with this where we'll leave you alone. And he took the small budget. And
yeah. I was just talking to a comedian about this, about how he's able to be the Louis C.K. the writer, the editor,
the editor is the one that gets everybody, isn't it?
It is.
Everybody
because we all know it's the final rewrite. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
That is spectacular, the fact that he's directing them. And I'm trying to remember the comedian who recently said to me, oh, I do, now I remember who it was. And I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't say. But he was saying the same thing. They gave him, you have X amount of dollars and you can literally do whatever you want. And we'll leave you alone and you get to edit and direct and everything. And he still had to figure out a way to do that, shooting only 4 days a week, which was pretty bizarre. So, yeah, when you're in that pocket of actually realizing your creative vision, and as you said, being able to bring in other writers that you knew and liked, and having a sort of haven, as it were. And then also at some point, I would think it becomes, like The Simpsons later did for Harvard grads, the place to be, the place to go to. When a show is doing something different, not just succeeding, because then it becomes a little bit of a resume builder. So, yeah, you want your friends there and you want to give, but I think I would guess, they sense that this is kind of a great opportunity as well. And then to be a part of that also kind of feels good at some point.
I think it's sort of simple. I think it's so simple, and it's just that what happens is you just say, "Let's do this,"
right?
And you do it.
Yeah,
it's just that simple, and you get spoiled in this great way.
Yeah, when given that freedom.
And I always think like I think the reason some people in television are prepared to do movies when they are, I think is because in movies you're on the set. And if you're not directing it, you're saying, what they should do this and stuff like that. And the leap from doing, I think to saying do this is very difficult. Going from that to do this is very difficult. Television, especially for a writer, especially for a comedy writer, especially one for somebody who has a show, you say, first of all, it's collegial, and there's a kind of relaxation when you don't have to fight for your opinion, when I think you get to listen better when you don't have to do what you're told.
Right.
So you listen. So I think the training is, there's nothing better. Forget training. It's a great end result. It's,
And it being a writer's medium.
Being a writer's medium, yeah.
I guess in the 50s, a lot of guys from the theater, Patty Chayefsky and whatnot.
Well, you just read that stuff and it's,
yeah. And boy, the movies, unless the writer is the director, the old joke about the dumb blonde who comes to Hollywood and sleeps with the writer.
Yeah, I remember a time writing movies where if somebody told you to rewrite somebody, it would be a legitimate moral dilemma, even if you didn't know the person. That would be like a thing you thought about.
Yeah.
And now, everybody's rewritten 5 times, and so but it's still.
There was a time.
But it's still the thing about, because everything's, you get into that conversation, everything's changed, the rules have changed, blah, 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 blah. The thing that never has changed, I think, is somebody right now is sitting someplace doing this, and it's going to happen the way he wants it to, because he or she will care about the way it happens.
Right.
And that's still it. That still can happen. A script written with a voice can become a movie that has an impact, and that teaches the person to do that again and again.
And are you a big fan of the Write What You Know?
Oh man.
Because broadcast news come from a world that you worked in. Mary Tyler Moore being set in a news station.
I don't know. It's like everything that gets said too much. I think I'm really trying to get into this television season, because I once said it was a Broadway season where I didn't care about any particular show. I wanted to get a gestalt from the season.
Yeah.
And I'm fooling around with it because it takes a tremendous amount of time. And I'm fooling around with doing it with this season.
Right.
And I have come to the conviction that we no longer need to say faster when doing comedy. People are going plenty fast. I think accidents are going to happen.
So faster, funnier.
Yes. So I think faster. Write what you know. I'm questioning me.
Yeah. Stop writing what you know. Now we know what you know, and it's not interesting anymore. Slower.
How about slow? Something that just interests you.
Slower, funnier. Yeah. When is that going to happen? That's pretty interesting, and pretty great. We like to involve our live viewers whenever possible, and so I want to take a moment just to do that, if you don't mind. And then they bring up interesting questions on their own. This looks like a tweet 5, yeah. Cue Dave Keckner. This is a funny guy. Dave Keckner. We have a tradition on the show. It's called a T5 or Tweet 5. It's a series of 5 rapid-fire questions, this or that, Coke or Pepsi, no correct answer, but they are geared by the audience specifically for you. So they be personalized. For example, in this Tweet 5, ready? Homer, Louie. And then you have to pick one.
2 names. I screwed up.
Reverend Jim Ottoman.
Oh, Reverend Jim, my God. Oh, yeah. Reverend, oh, Mike, what are we talking about?
Come on.
What are we talking about?
I know. Mary Richards, Jane Craig.
Oh,
These are not easy. Some of these are going to be Sophie's choice.
Sophie.
Yeah. Melvin Udall, Garrett Breedlove. Yeah, right? Come on. And they even threw in Ted Baxter or Kent Brockman. That was one of the... Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Ted.
Well, Ted was the last of a particular kind of talent that was just holy shit, man.
Yeah.
He was just intrinsically comic.
Yeah. Where the hell did Ted Knight come from? My God.
He came in, Alan and I always felt as either inside or, just being, we felt that he had to have spent his last money on the blazer he wore to the audition to be Ted Baxter. We felt that way. And he killed. And he was a comic spirit. And there were times when he was serious and playing something where we would laugh. He was a comic spirit and a great heart and a great different kind of comedy talent.
Yes.
I mean, I think, in the same way maybe Andy was, but Andy was cutting edge and creating something new. Ted was maybe the last vaudevillian,
Yeah, and there was that little bit of sadness of a true vaudevillian.
Yeah.
He was one of the early impersonations that I did, Ted Baxter. And I remember in his laugh, when I started to get the essence of his laugh, there was a little sadness in it when he would come in and say, "Hi, Mayor. Hi, Lou." There was some sort of sadness in the downbeat of his laugh. "Shut up, Murray." Oh,
and the way he loved it.
Yeah.
The way just juice, love it. No, nothing held back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those characters being so etched in stone after a very short period of time, because the thing was sort of an instant hit was, as I recall, and the research certainly suggests. But you forget that at a time, some of these people did come in and audition like that. Was there anyone that was going to play Lou Grant other than Ed Asner? Is that possible?
Everything was audition. Long audition process for everybody in the show, except Mary. It was built around Mary. Yeah.
Right. Just extraordinary.
But Reverend Jim was like he just allowed you to write stuff you wouldn't be allowed to write unless that character existed. It was just...
Yeah. He was Christopher Walken before Christopher Walken in terms of train of thought and all thoughts disconnected. Yeah. That was the magic of that. And was that something in his particular audition? How much of that was on paper and how much did he bring in to the room? Because again, you look at that character in that show and you go, well,
Chris used to have the table reading on Monday, and Tuesday and Wednesday you're on the stage, and by Thursday his facial hair had grown in enough, and pop, there was the guy, and everything took off. It was just an absolute creation.
Yeah. And when you went from single camera with Room 222 to the multi-camera setting of MTM, did you easily sort of embrace and celebrate that live theater feeling with the audience there? Or was it a different kind of, different that, I'm always curious because those two, they seem like totally different comedic chops.
Well, yeah, you had to clock your laughs with an audience, yeah.
Right.
You had to clock your laughs, and
And you had done that on other shows, on other people's staff.
But we used to, a little bit, not much. It was really not much.
No?
Not much, no. I think Mary was my first multiple camera show. I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
My Mother the Car was single camera.
Yeah.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm pretty sure.
Wow. And it was so fun, weird, nauseating, all those things.
It was...
Because there's something about that live thing, man.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you get a high. You get a high, and you change it, and the dress would be that kind of tension, and it's just that the progression to a finished show was exciting because something that happened every day, and we did do retakes, and you were allowed to do that, and we do some of it in front of the audience, and for some strange reason, as anybody will tell you with a multiple camera show, it's going to get a bigger laugh the second time, even though they've heard the line. Nobody ever figured out why, but that's true.
Because they feel like they're in on the joke.
And yeah.
They feel like they're a part of your show now.
Yeah,
which is such a strange.
And throwing in jokes, just before the audience comes in and stuff. It's good. It's great. And for Mary, since we had that cast and everybody had studied for acting in a different way, everybody came from it in a different route. That was, I always thought, my college. I always thought that's where I learned from everybody there because they were just all so different.
Every style and
every style, yeah. Group theater to Second City to, like with Ted.
Right. And I also thought that it was pretty bold, daring, and must have been kind of fantastic when the Lou Grant spinoff goes from the comedy to the 1 hour drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't recall that happening.
Well, we did it. Ed said he wanted to do a show with him. We knew he could do, and he says, I wouldn't mind playing this guy some more. And then we said, when is this spin-off? Not quite a spin-off. And they said, when you spin off to a different form. So that's how we decided to do that.
Right. And it was huge.
Yeah. Well, huge. It was successful.
Yeah.
It wasn't huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I mean, it was event television at the time. And it was revisiting that character. It was getting back to
and it
that
was
character.
great because you got your stories from the newspaper. I mean, stories, I'll never have a series where it's easier to come up with stories.
Really?
Yeah, because the newspaper had it. We just picked newspaper stories.
Yeah, and you... Right. Names changed to protect the
And there was a guy named Leon Tkachin, who was a great writer who worked on the series, and he was a great, what was he, Armenian or whatever, he was Polish, he was Tkachin, whatever Tkachin is, he was, and he was a great poetic guy, and he used to write these great speeches, these monologues he used to put, and it got me it made me love monologues. It made me love, so that whenever I can justify one character talking for a long period of time, since that series, I love to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's always interesting when you find something like that and it hooks you.
Yeah, because the guy was so great, I just ate it up.
All right, so let's talk about that moment, if you don't mind, where the idea of writing for feature, starting over again, one of those seminal pictures for me in terms of the romantic comedy spun on its ass and feeling more like a drama, and yet had the sort of classic arrangement of a rom-com. What was your experience like writing for that kind of director in Alan Pakula?
It worked differently than that. I had tried to write a feature for Universal, and when I handed in my story outline, which was probably about 80 pages, the head of Universal at the time excoriated me in a meeting in a way where, as the meeting was going on, as he was telling me how shitty I was, my thought stopped being about the piece. My thought truly was, will I survive this? Will this guy tell me I'm this bad and I walk out of here, and will I still be okay?
And this is after all the television success?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
That's a powerful conversation.
So
debilitating, devastating. Huh. Oh.
So I stumble out of that.
I'm nauseous.
And by the way, you know how you know what my heroic moment was when he excoriated me?
Please.
Begging for another chance.
That's right.
It was just I was a broken man.
That's how you were.
I was just on my knees. I'm sorry, man. But I mean deeply, and I just limped out of there.
That's how you salvaged it.
No. I mean, I just tell him. There was no.
Right.
What's the opposite of heroism? What is the opposite of heroism?
Pleading, begging. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's what I was doing.
Begging for your life. Oh God.
And then I wrote that, and I almost didn't hear from them again. It was just dead.
Right.
And then I read a book. Oh, no, I was sent a book by somebody. And by the way, this was during the time when, very hard to imagine now, if you worked in television, it was
verboten.
Yeah, you just couldn't get a movie job.
Yeah.
So it was very unusual when we got, but Mary was a very.
Now we can use the word huge. Mary was huge.
Well, All in the Family was huge, and we were right after it. But we were, everybody loved. It was great. We were the right show at the right time.
Yeah.
Felt great. Everything good. And so they sent me this book and asked if I wanted to adapt it, starting over.
Right.
And I said yeah. And I worked on it. And I was writing my script, and then I had been on it for some time when I heard that somebody else had also been hired to work on the same script. And I was fired without anybody telling me that I was fired. And because this became the script that they were interested in.
Right.
So I don't even know whether I handed in mine or not, but nobody called me. I was just out of that job. And then about a year later, the option lapsed on the book, and I optioned it. And then I adapted it. And then I got to try and get the director I wanted most for it. Which was Alan Pakula, and
that's wildly impressive, and honestly and truly for writers to know that sort of thing is even possible. Also, given the how you find out you're no longer on the project aspect to the story, to then option the material.
Jerry Belson once handed in, who was a great comedy writer, and just handed in a script and did a lot of great movies, and he handed in a script, and the guy called him immediately and said, perfect. And he was fired 2 days later.
Oh, God.
But literally so, though. He got the phone call, hey,
perfect.
Yeah.
Can you check the air conditioning? It normally is on auto, and it's been a meat locker for for too long. I don't want. Also, one of my first impressions. Sorry to make this about me again. Sheldon Leonard. Have you ever heard anyone do Sheldon? Well, back in the day, someone must have been mocking him behind his back.
No.
But you were right. He was a juggernaut, was he not, on the television?
He was a juggernaut, and you believed that he had criminal connections, didn't you? I mean, don't you believe now that he had criminal connections just because he played that guy?
Yeah. And my impression is from It's a Wonderful Life when he's just a bartender. But he always seemed to be connected to the mob.
Yeah.
But as a big television executive.
No, if you had to name 5 people in history who were powers at the time, he would certainly be one.
Bigger than Quinn Martin, needless to say. All right, that's it. You 2 pixies out the door or out the window. Oh, that's all right.
And got laughs. His voice got laughs. I mean, it was just nuts how he got laughs.
On Sirius, there's a classic radio station. I don't know if you ever listened to it, but they play old radio shows, and every now and then he'll pop up, and you just laugh. It's just ridiculous. So you have pretty great success on optioning the book for starting over, and the Larry.
It wasn't. The picture did well. It did well.
It was not gigantic.
Yeah. It was
kind of create some street cred for Burt Reynolds.
Well, but.
All right.
I wanted Nicholson. We didn't get him. Robert Redford came close to the part, and I just said, I don't understand it with the guys that good looking. How can you just act like there's not this great looking guy and that people react to him like that? And that didn't quite happen. And then Bert, who was the biggest movie star in the country.
Mm-hmm. For 10 years.
Yes, #1 movie star in the country, and wanted to do it. And I think he did a good job. Now, it's sort of amazing I've held out this long in this conversation without revealing myself as clinically insane. But this is what I have in for Burt Reynolds. This is, well, first of all, he took credit for the biggest joke in the movie, which I did.
Oh, that's.
I can overlook that and understand reasonable men can differ and stuff like that. But
oh God.
But there's a speech. I told you, Leon Tkachin, these monologues. I had a monologue with the girl just beating on him and saying this speech that I really loved this speech. And he came there with a brand new trench coat. And the trench coat. Now, I said I'm not going to sound normal off this story, but so you don't have to just look at me like that when I give that preface. And I swear to God, I still feel that over that trench coat ruining a scene that was so important to that movie and making everything a little fake. And it was meant to be just gutsy with all kinds of stuff coming out.
Also, the speech in the hands of a Jill Claiborne, I imagine, was like a dream.
Yeah.
And petty stealing focus kind of trench coat?
No, it's just fake. It was just fake. It was one of those things like that's the thing about movies that it's so difficult to make a scene work, but anybody can kill a scene.
Yeah.
Just
false.
The wrong wardrobe, the war. Yeah.
The moment it's false.
Yeah.
It's literally.
But
over.
it was a great lesson for me. Alan Bakula, who was Jesus, just great director and very bright guy, and he barred me from the set the first day because I was that. He said a great thing. I was the writer producer, and I was there when it wasn't going the way I thought. I had heard it. My face showed it, and he'd look over, and I'd be that person, and I'd make the call to the actor, and I'd look what I really want to. I was just terrible because
you come from TV where the writers
and he said a great thing. He says, director doesn't need to know everything there is. He needs the illusion that he does. So I'd rather he didn't come to the set. But once we were finished, he included me so much in the post-production, so much in the editing process, and he's the one who recommended me for my next job, so it was so great that he was able to stop that sort of destructive thing in me, and still nurture me and mentor me. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty astounding.
Yeah.
Because that was a moment in time to just be hurt that you'd been asked not to come back.
Yeah.
And instead, have that wonderful experience in post-production. Again, the final rewrite, writer wants to be there for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. It's all musical rhythms when you're writing it. That dialogue is all.
It's the friend of the writer-director and the enemy of the writer-director, because you've heard it a certain way, but not from the person you cast, maybe, and if it's not an open process when you make a movie, what is it? What are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to make that movie you had in your head, but it's valuable that you had a movie in your head.
Right. Yeah, a template.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot written about your style on the set being.
I can explain that.
I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'll know it when I see it. I'll know it when I hear it. I'll know it when I feel it.
Oh.
And I
don't think that's my style. I don't think that's my style. I think I am successfully, well, let me see. The example for this was As Good as It Gets, where Jack had an enormously difficult character to do. And, I mean, I'm pitching all the time. I'm somebody where I don't think I get away with it any longer but I don't understand going through a long take if the director is thinking, we're off on the wrong foot here, let's go back and do, and I'm used to a television energy too. And I always love the discussion about what we should try next, and I love the idea, and I love just, that's what it's supposed to be. That people stand together and talk to each other and look for the next thing to try. I mean, that's why people want to do it. I mean, in some way.
Right.
With Jack's character in that, I felt it wasn't right, and my job is to get him to a place that's right, and I with this character in this movie, it was very impossible for me to do that.
Right.
I didn't know.
That's where they came.
I didn't know what. So I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. Sometimes I didn't say anything. Let's do it again. Let's try again. Until I have an idea. Until something happens.
Right.
And that's brutal on an actor. And I know it's brutal on an actor. But at least it was raw and honest, and we were in there together looking for it.
Right.
And
the actor wants to experiment, but they also want to be guided.
And sometimes I'd say the worst thing you can say as a director, I'd say too angry, which is the worst thing you can say because it's just a negative, and you're not. It's just shitty direction.
Okay.
But it was all I had. You're raw, and you're trying to get there, and I did feel it was too angry. But so if I could do my job better, I would say something that would get us out of that. But I didn't know what that thing was, and then one day in one scene, and none of this makes sense, it reached the point, Jack and I are good friends, and it reached the point where everything was being tested, because we were going in there and knocking up against it every day.
Right.
And we had, and this reached a crescendo, this thing that had been going on, because just to find the tone of that guy, first of all, the only actor in the world who could play that guy, there was nobody else. Nobody else had a chance at it.
Right.
And yet there was something difficult because of the way the guy conducted himself.
Well, you had him walking the tightrope, no question about it, as constructed.
So I stopped shooting, which is and
bit of
sent
a
the
red
crew
flag.
home.
Yeah.
Sent the crew home, and I don't remember anything we said. I think we sat alone on a stage for 3 hours, and were raw with each other about where we were, and that did something.
Wow. I mean, it's just a level of digging and scratching and being wrong.
By the way, Jack's version of this story is, I said too angry, and then finally he blew up in a scene and went crazy and just threw things, and I said, that's it. That's his version of the story. In fairness.
Oh, man. Well, he took home the Oscar for it, as did Helen, who I read in the research and discover, either, again, apocryphal, was originally supposed to be Holly again. Is that any truth to that?
Broadcast News?
No, Holly for As Good as It Gets. Was that a consideration on Holly Hunter?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Because it was something that Helen rose to a level of performance that I think
She was great, yeah.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
She was funny enough so she could just play the truth, and somehow the spirit was right and the tone was right. The tone was very difficult in that movie.
Yeah, I was reading a lot about that and about the struggle for that tone, exactly how to play it, and also I felt like not only was Jack doing something that we had not only not seen him do, we hadn't really seen anyone do. But then you also decide to, let's mix in another thing and make a movie star out of Greg Kinnear.
Well, I read everybody who ever said the word acting, even in casual conversation, over a period of 6 months, and couldn't find that guy until finally it came to Greg, who was, it was just reading everybody whose name you could think of who was alive at the time.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that speaks even more volumes to earning that place with talent, as opposed to maneuvering or all the other 17 reasons why an actor gets hired. Because, oh boy, did he... I mean, all three of them in those roles made everyone sit up and say, what the fuck just happened? So the fact that there was a struggle in finding tone, it seemed like such a tightrope, because, as I was reading more about it and remembering more about the film, it's just one slight hair on the wrong side of what Jack's doing, and it's a cartoon. And the anger issue, for sure. He's got to say some unbelievably ugly things. So crazy someplace else. We're all full up here. Oh, boy.
Well, may I
Please.
ask, since we're on the subject,
Yes, please.
and I don't think that I'll ever have a more perfect opportunity to ask this question in earnest, how do you write women so well?
Aha! Been doing it just
Every once in a while, a guy comes up to me and whispers that, away from this woman, and whispers
I'm
a joke
serious,
about that.
but truly, because I've seen all your films. I'm a huge fan.
And the TV
I've said
stuff.
this before,
I mean,
and the
my
TV
goodness.
stuff is, and you write women. No, you don't even. I'm curious.
I was raised by women. I was raised by women.
Okay.
I'm a mother and an older sister, and my mother had 2 sisters. I don't know. That's what I hear women all my life.
It's just
that simple. Okay.
I don't know.
No, you don't. You don't have to give.
You asked for sincerity.
No, I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. In my brief experience, there's a strength in a woman that at times is a lot more fun to write than the strength of a man, because there's more sense of
Well, it's
discovery.
tricky. I think everything's changing, Lou. I'm not sure how, but it used to be that if you had a woman do a certain set of actions, the audience would automatically sympathize with her and understand her. You have a guy do the same thing and they'd hate him, and boom, there would be this prejudice in favor of women, and I think I hope that's eroding. I think that's changing. I think there's a lot that's changing. I think that's one of the things that's changing. I think the nature of romance is sort of, which I always thought was rock solid, and that's the one thing they can't change. It's a little out of sphere, I think.
Right.
Pragmatism is so important now. Survival is so important now. Just different things color it.
Yeah.
But this year of the woman in television. This is an extraordinary year for women in television, I think.
What are you seeing and liking?
The series
under your?
Everybody's loving New Girl. I have to catch up with that. I'm probably going to see that tonight. I think Whitney is really a voice, and I think the couple on Whitney is the most positive. A couple that has the same sense of humor, and has that as the core of their relationship. I don't know that it's been a long time since I've seen that represented that well.
Where they share the same, because after all, that is what.
Where the finishing the sentence thing isn't a cliche. You see it happening, and it's alive.
Wow.
I think.
I hope I can get past the nauseating marketing campaign for Whitney and actually give the show a chance. Because holy fuck, did they bore me
Except when they had the joke with the computer, I thought that was a 10. I thought that was a 10 joke.
Unfortunately, it fell in the middle of 72 other reasons why I was annoyed.
Yeah.
Beyond belief.
And broke girls, it's but again, the faster thing is sort of, I think,
There's hope.
Yeah, I think,
we have insane Simpsons fans, so we need to spend a little time here.
I've never seen the show.
You were a fan of the cartoon strip of his
Life
in Hell that Jamie. You were so thrilled when he signed your script after the one table.
With Akbar and Jeff. I asked for Akbar and Jeff.
Yeah.
I still have the faded strip that somebody gave me in '84 as a gift that led to Matt and I working together.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
You know what the strip was? It was. He had done a panel.
The
Life in
panel
Hell.
one.
The ways to die in Los Angeles.
Right. Do you remember a couple of them? Because these are pretty great.
It was drive-by shootings and stuff like that. And the last two in the panel were all those things that you can imagine. And the last two in the panel were success and failure.
Right. Equal killers. So initially it was just, can you come up with something for the Tracy Ullman show? Obviously people have heard the large view of how that happened. But I found interesting, you guys as Uber fans probably knew this, but that there was a situation where he didn't really want to hand over the ownership of the comic strip characters and kind of spritzed the initial outline of what this Simpsons family might be as interstitial gags.
If anyone ever doubts that there's a higher power, here's Matt Groening, called in doing Life in Hell to have a meeting with me for these little 30-second pieces we're going to put in a variety show on a network that never existed before. And as there are two stories, and I don't think Matt remembers which is correct. One is that he did it on the drive over. The other is that he did it in the 10 minutes in my office, and said, I don't want to give him Life in Hell, what'll I give him? And in those 10 minutes, basically drew what became The Simpsons.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's so absurd.
Yeah.
You think it has to be apocryphal. So forgive me for asking, and thank you for confirming. My understanding is that you were not terribly excited about going back to TV, whatever the fuck that means, going back to TV. I imagine you were a sincere fan of Tracy's like the rest of the world.
That wasn't true. No, I would never feel that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, because why would it doesn't make a lot of sense that a medium line in the sand would make any sense one way or the other. Yeah, the early days of HBO, boy, it didn't exist. It just didn't exist. It was girls in leotards, exercising.
It was, Fourth Network was a ridiculous idea then. I once had a show canceled with a 37 share. No, yes. I swear to God,
That's Super Bowl numbers.
That's a true figure. I mean, that's how. Yes, it's a true figure. Yeah, it is. It is almost, isn't it? It's like it's like American Idol.
The
It's like
finale of American Idol is a 30.
But people were getting 45s, 50s. It was, and I think we followed a 50 something, and we dropped to 37 or something like that. But I had a show with a 37 share canceled, so that it was so different.
Yeah.
It was so different because if you had a top 10 show, you know, like Grant used to say, you could fly across the country on a Saturday night, jump out of a plane, and land on somebody watching your show. Those were the odds that you'd land on somebody watching your show, and it's you know, so different now. The niche thing is so,
oh boy,
you know, and I'm not saying better or worse. It's just dramatically different.
Yeah.
So it's good when you have a gigantic hit show, because I think it's always good for all of us to come to the same watering hole out of our little spots in the forest and look at each other every once in a while, and a great hit show can do that.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. So, did it seem like the least amount of pressure in the history of creativity working for this tiny wannabe, or was it that you and Tracy were kind of given free rein to pretty much?
We were given no rein. The horses were wild. There were no reins on the horses. There were no saddles. There were just these galloping.
Would you mind bringing in some costumes, Tracy?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it was it's the hardest. I mean, I think it's the hardest show I ever did, the Tracy Ullman show, because you'd have a live audience, and you'd be giving them over the course of the evening 22 minutes of entertainment, and it would take her 2 hours to put on some of those prosthetics you were talking about earlier.
Right.
So it was
the show was not built in editing at all.
So it was just well, you know, we'd always. Yeah, and you'd never feel good because you'd do 3 sketches every week, and it was a good week where only one of them didn't work. But there was always something. You went home with the one that didn't work. So it was almost impossible, because of the nature of the show, to get the get off that you're used to.
Right.
When you put them together, it could work, because you drop the one that didn't, you know. And
yeah.
And she's, of course, you know, singular talent.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me based on the research, the notion of taking the Simpsons as an entity on their own over to Fox.
Well, the Tracy show was on Fox.
Right.
So we couldn't do the Simpsons without Fox. They had the Simpsons because it was already on their air.
Right. But I mean, in terms of it being standalone.
Fox was going broke.
Yeah.
Really going broke.
At least we forget.
Really going broke. And but they had to stay on the air. And there was a Christmas party where David Silverman, who's still with the show, it's amazing how many of us are still with the show who were there at the beginning, and who drew it for the Tracy show, and who was the director of the Simpsons movie. He was very young, and he got drunk at a Christmas party, and came over to me and did some, and sort of emptied a lot of emotion on me about why there's not an animated show in prime time, how it had been 25 years, what it means to him and his fellow animators, and it was quite emotional. And I walked away from him, certainly glad to be away from him at that moment, but feeling it, wanting to, just getting that, you know, his passion. He really got me. And then there was, and then we asked Fox to do it as a show. They wanted to do, let's try 4 specials, because of, you know, doing it on the air commitment and stuff like that was too expensive for them. And Matt had the dream of the series, and then we decided to take a very extreme stand for a series, or I don't know what, but the ground was moving a little.
Right.
You know, we were taking a very strong stand against people who, you know, were up against the wall financially, and they rolled the dice
on a number of episodes,
and gave us a series of commitment. We weren't going to see them for 6 months. They had, you know,
they were writing a big ass check for then waiting half a year.
Yeah.
Which is not with television.
Yeah. So Barry Diller was the guy in charge then, and
Yeah. And was it from the beginning, given all that you just laid out, we're gonna deliver this to you, but we'd rather not hear from you about the content, or was that after it was up and running?
Our first show was a Santa's Little Dog, where
Simpsons roasting on a nose of fire.
And I still love that show so much. I thought it was like, I did think it was magic. Our second show, when it came in, because now that we were a series, was off-model. What they call off-model. In other words, in Korea they had made some mistakes, and so that the Simpsons characters look grotesque. And there's
the footage of that. Is it on the first season of DVDs? I think there's a little test footage of where the door is slamming and they.
It
looks like Italian animation.
Yeah. And because it's an assembly line.
Yeah.
We didn't know whether they were all like that,
Oh, God.
and we had to wait 1 week before we knew whether they were all like that, or whether this was just one guy fucking up, and they weren't. But that week was painful.
That's a long.
And you always have to mention Sam Simon when you mention The Simpsons, because it was the three of us who did it.
Yeah. How was the that threesome?
Well, let's see. It worked. Sam and I had worked together on Taxi. Three isn't the. I once interviewed 3 guys who were prisoners of war in China. I forget when, and they were the only Americans in China, and they were together. And this doesn't quite follow what happened with us,
right.
But what they said, it was always 2 against 1, and the 2 changed. But that wasn't our experience as a threesome. But and it worked. It was. I just think, looking back, I can really think of that. The 3 of us were really the right people to be together for that.
Well, there are genuine reasons why you want him to be there.
Want who?
Why you want Sam to be there. In the early stages of launching something like that, when you say it's the 3 of you, and that you had worked with Sam previously, am I wrong to assume?
Yeah, and remember the huge thing for the show at the beginning. The show's been on this long because the ethos has changed over the years. But at the beginning, we were nuts on this. Sam and I had come from character comedy, of wanting those kind of shows. We wanted you to believe these people. We wanted it to be realistic. Sam had also worked in animation on Saturdays. Matt had, extraordinary visions. Matt would say something like, "Why don't people on television watch television?" That became part of the show. Just amazing how things fall in when something is working and that everybody's doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really happened. And we were just. And we don't want anybody to know who the actors are on the show. We don't want to do anything to break the illusion that they exist here and this is the only place they exist. And we were rigid for 2.5 years, and then gradually, as we let those rules go away, the show, it did something good for us.
Yeah. Yeah, there was, I remember at the time, early on, everyone was sort of abuzz about their not marketing the actors for the right reason, which is to maintain the illusion and the existence of this real family.
Yeah, and I think it was Sam who brought in Al Jean and Mike Reese, and Al Jean is our showrunner today and has been for years.
Right. I have difficulty listening to Homer's voice in the first season because I was first introduced and fell in love with his voice in latter seasons. I now find it unnerving to hear Dan doing a little bit of
Walter
Matthau before he locked into because
you mean in the early times you did?
Yeah. The early episodes of the first season, when he was either finding it or whatever it was, there was a transition. No different than the transition when Smithers went from an African American to a Caucasian. Listen, there were transitions that took place.
Yep.
There was a tweet from Harry Shearer, who sat here a few weeks ago saying hello. We've had a few of the people, Hank Azaria as well, and his lovely stories about a lot of the voices from the show being his bad impressions. So a terrible Edward G. Robinson becomes Quincy. And
a bad Jerry Lewis becomes Professor Frank.
Yeah, but he insists these are horrible impressions of the actual person.
That was great when we did Jerry Lewis on the show, and Jerry, that was great.
That was
when we did
amazing.
that,
What was that like?
It was. He just loved what he noted this about Hank. He just, it's just like.
And to see him come in.
Yeah. And Dan is gorgeous Second City. I mean, great improvisatory comedian, just brilliantly. It's a great cast. I mean, you've got to get lucky in that regard.
Really do.
Yeah.
Really do. There are utility players from Saturday Night Live over the years. Phil Hartman, who did tremendous work for Simpsons, who were such great utility players that you felt the necessity of their range creatively as a fan, and so I can't imagine as the producer what the power of that stable that you could just go to. I need and then between this cast, I can't imagine there's an accent, a part of the world, a character that can't be instantly sort of offered up.
Yeah.
But then there are these standouts who come from outside of it, and I'm speaking, of course, of Kelsey Grammer as Sideshow Bob, who becomes indelible.
Yeah. And loves doing it whenever he's always been great. Yeah.
I love that he's part of the attraction at Universal.
Yeah,
Sideshow Bob's a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, it's like working for the Vatican now. It's not like it is the so everybody gets to feel that.
What was that first initial sense when something like this goes worldwide with this sort of impact, and how its power in Britain alone? I don't know if from the beginning.
Early on.
Was just unparalleled, or so it seemed for an American show. What is the sense of that from something that you're working on, or is it just sort of folded in with?
I can only tell you what I feel.
Right.
It's like looking through a telescope at stars or something. It's just so otherworldly.
Right.
It's just so weird. It's just so and that you end up so it's all like it's like hallucinatory. It's when you go out there, like when we went to Dublin for St. Patrick's Day with the Simpsons, and when for the movie we went to Springfield, what was it? Vermont, and they closed, and it's like it's sort of silly, but it's great, and it's always surreal. It's not quite real. The work is quite real. The work is quite real. The work is quite real, and I think we all, deeply appreciate our jobs.
Yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we for all these years now we just get to do what we. And everybody and we tend to self-police, and we tend to feel like like museum guards, and trying to protect everything and not let anything turn bad, and
right.
So we all have those feelings. The movie was a great shot in the opera. They changed that. When we did the ride, it's surreal doing a ride. We wrote a ride, man.
I know. Well, there was a
and we wrote a ride, and there were important rewrites in the ride as they were constructing the ride, and we'd have to change the ride because we got
give me one big important rewrite.
A ride changed for a joke. I mean, it was like, it's crazy what goes on there.
Give me a big.
We walked into 7-Elevens where they were.
We went to the Quickie Mart on Venice.
And our guys wrote cereal boxes, and it was.
We kept. I swear to you, because of her, because of Jamie, we kept one of the donuts in our freezer for.
When we moved
3 years.
I had to get rid of it.
3 years.
Gross.
3 years. in the freezer.
It was
'Cause we
my forbidden.
just-
It was my forbidden donut.
It was so forbidden it could never be touched, and remained in the freezer for 3 years.
Forbidden donut.
Oh man. Yeah, there's no.
Sacrilegious.
What is this?
Sacrilegious. Sacrilegious.
The forbidden
was the
donut.
Forbidden donut. Homer's musings.
Yeah, Danny can improvise at this point anything and surprise you still with Homer's thoughts.
Oh, yeah, yes. If you have you ever been to one of our recordings or
Not recording,
table
just the
reads or anything
table
like that?
reads.
No table reading.
But if you, I think it's more true with the recordings when we're in this place like this, where if you've never seen it before, there's a few minutes where you say, oh gee, these people are doing, and then what I think I find happens with visitors is they forget, and it is Homer.
Yeah.
It is, and by the way, he's physically acting it too.
I would think so.
Yeah.
There's no way to just stand at
Yeah.
a mic and do all
Yeah.
that. But to be able to improvise, because I know that according to the research anyways, in the course of doing the movie, there were times when there were moments that sort of needed to be found and expounded, no different than when you're directing a film of live action, where there's experimentation to find that musical rhythm. And it seemed like Danny could improvise as Homer now, and surprise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was the...
And we had a seminal thing happen that I always think was very important for us. That in a very early season, we had Dustin Hoffman. Wow, and he was going to play a teacher, and we took Yardley, who plays Lisa, and like 4 or 5 of us went to New York from here, and we did like 6 hours recording where we were just working on the acting, and just the fact that we had done that became part of who we were. That we had done that and worked on the acting and worked on how they did it together.
Right.
I mean, and it was just, I just thought, so great to experience that, because then it could be something that you chase again. And we just had a similar thing where we just chase a reality, because we're doing a musical show with Lady Gaga.
I'm sorry?
We're doing a musical show with Lady Gaga. And we got, there's been like 7 or 8 people where we become children when they came, and this is certainly one of those things where we were like excited children. I mean, it was the first script we ever did on spec, and I had in the back of my mind that she's a public figure, we can get somebody to play her, we can do that if we do, but then she did it, and it was like it was thrilling. I mean, and I don't know. We're still reaching for it. We're still, the show's recorded, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
But it was really exciting because we were sort of saying something about her. She was being a great sport about that. She had a slant on playing the character. It was the first time she'd ever acted. She said until she said once she had played girl number 4 on The Sopranos, but this is the first time since then she had acted.
Jesus.
And she gave her heart and vulnerability to it, which was sort of extraordinary. I thought. And she was playing herself, so it's and that's that I think we did that like 3 weeks ago, and we were all like going around for weeks, like one of the it's one of the most exciting things any of us have done in a while, and we just really hope it works, and so the show keeps on being that.
22 years or 23 years into the process to find that sort of excitement, and fear.
Yeah, and you can, and it's like
to be challenged.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's the greatest job.
No, it's great
for
man.
everyone who works on it.
Yeah.
The actor Dana Gould was our last guest and talked about his tenure there and how it's just the greatest job ever. Conan O'Brien talks about it with such affection. It's extraordinary.
And he was like a star out of the box now. As on the writing staff, he would, how usually he goes through that very painful period of, should I talk now? Should I raise my hand now? He was
really?
Yeah, he was there from the beginning, getting the big laughs in the room.
The monorail episode. Come on.
So he was fearless.
He was born. He was out of the box great.
Wow. I can't imagine that's happened too much over the
He's noteworthy.
Yeah. Yes. And the movie was, like you said, it was very re-energizing for everyone
us, yeah.
involved in the show, because you had the TV writers side of it. The current writers would see drafts and offer up some ideas after the so-called original guard or expansion thereof had worked so much on the core and building it. We've got to talk about Albert Brooks, please.
My pleasure.
These two, we had a couple of debates over, I think one of the Ask Kevins, which was what was your favorite Albert Brooks character on the show, and then Sam, you actually went off to, it was not on a show, it was on
Jacques from The Simpsons. Jacques, the bowling
Yeah,
instructor.
I was saying that's clearly, yeah.
Yeah. They want to know whether it was Hank Scorpio
That's what it
or
was.
Yeah.
or what's the other?
The guy that asked the question, his was Hank Scorpio.
Jacques,
Right.
I mean,
What's your favorite
What
Hank
was-
Scorpio? Thing.
what was that joke about brunch that he did? You know,
It's a little bit of breakfast, a little bit of lunch, but it comes with a slice of cantaloupe at the end. It's not exactly what you would get at lunch, but you get a good meal.
Get a good meal.
Whoa!
Oh, you
Jim,
Yeah,
I'm
you gotta get
telling
us
you,
warmed up.
These two, all right, we're going to give you,
that was,
speak
but
in
it,
some sense.
and that was for the staff, man. It was just because there'd be a part improvise, like what was it, Wagner's Ring? How long is that? I mean, you're talking about a guy going for like 6 hours where people screaming on the floor, and then you have to edit it.
really?
Yeah.
Those are the sessions. Those are the sessions that
for
bring
that,
you
yeah.
that.
I speak in Simpsons. I have certain friends that I just text images to, and they understand what I mean.
Right.
Like, that's all I need to do. Like, this means everything's coming at Millhouse. You just have to know that. Like, I could just send that to Sam, and he'll be like, "Oh, you're having a good day."
You know what I tried?
Understand?
I was fixated on this for the longest time. I wanted to do a ringtone that you'd have for your boyfriend with Lisa saying, "It's him." And I wanted that so much, and I still haven't been able to get it across. I'm telling you, every once in a while they say, I bring it up again. And
How could that not be a thing?
How can that not be a thing? They've
a
marketed The
ringtone.
that's a
Simpsons in
solid
every
ringtone, isn't that?
conceivable
Come
way.
on, man.
It's him. It's him.
Wow.
It's him.
Yeah, we gotta get that.
What would be your ringtone, Sam? All right, well, let's pitch some ringtones.
Oh gosh.
You know, it's
my
gotta be
Simpsons
brief,
ring.
it's gotta be
You'll have to
powerful.
speak. You'll have to speak up. I'm wearing a
I
towel.
have that. I read that to you, Mike. You called and left me a voicemail when I was in the shower, and I said, and then I just text him that, and he's like, "Oh, were you just in the shower?" I just text him the image of Homer on the phone in the towel.
Truly though, over the years, I always come back to my favorite Homer line, which you guys know I say it all the time. Don't you hate pants?
I hate pants.
That encapsulates everything I love about Homer. Because he knows that Krusty made them burn money last time, and he sits down. Hope he says he hates pants. These things have been chafing me all day. Krusty doesn't get 10 seconds into his set. Don't you hate pants? Just so wanting it.
You also love from that episode the banter between Lisa and Marge. It's like, "I love you, Mom.
Right. Here's $60. It's everything I have. Run home and bury it in the yard.
Love you, Mom."
The perfect relationship. The perfect relationship between Lisa and Marge, where they understand each other. And then there's that other scene from Treehouse of Horror 1, where the world and they get into the spaceship, and Lisa's going to go up on the ship.
Mom.
Okay, right. This is a very difficult decision. You can only take one parent.
Mom. The guy doesn't even
Doesn't even finish question. Doesn't even finish.
Which of these is your favorite? James Hell Brooks, James Bemused but Bloodthirsty Brooks, James Haha the Truth is Unknowable Brooks, James Hell Brooks, James L I'm Thinking of You Naked Brooks, or Mames Hell Brooks? Oh my God.
I got the worst reaction to "I'm Thinking of You Naked." I really had people just be openly critical of that one. Oh God, I just reminded me I'm late for one this year. Oh, okay.
Oh, when is it? When is it
Yeah,
due?
they do the
I don't know.
Halloween episode in January.
James Hell Brooks was great. I
Sure.
used it frequently. The truth The truth is unknowable, I like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's more personal.
Yeah.
All right, so Albert Brooks casts you. Let's go to the other side of it. And Modern Romance is by far my favorite film of his. It speaks to a rhythm of the insecurity in man regarding love in a way that I'm not sure was ever done before or since. And the vulnerability while being insanely funny.
And how crazy you get.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how truly obsessively crazy you
Without
get.
being on top of it. Really just doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, in it.
Yeah.
There's no on top.
Yeah, you bet.
No, you're in it and you're lost and you're fucked.
You bet. You
When
bet.
he pulls into the drugstore.
Because I would have bet there's no one on earth but Albert. And Albert found out that it's a human quality with in the picture. Yeah.
Yeah. But when he pulls into the drugstore and says to the guard booth, I broke up with my girlfriend. It's going to be a second. I mean, the level of. Excuse me, do you have a doll you pull a string? It says, I'm sorry, Mary. How you make that pain funny. All right, so you guys know each other a long time. He says, I want you to be in the thing. You did a small thing in real life, but this is a little bit more.
So the driving instructor had his moments, a pretty complicated character, I think.
Yeah. How comfortable are you in front of the camera, I guess is my question.
Horribly uncomfortable. So that, but Albert said to me, come on, do it, it will be fun.
You must have said no 60 times.
I said no almost as many times as he said no to paying me for the use of my car on the film. Because Albert's not, just Albert has. And I just wanted to get $25 for the use of my car, and I made it a major issue, and it got so serious.
Wow, that's fantastic! And I know he's watching.
But Albert said it will be fun, and I quickly became a director's nightmare. Because I would be the guy waiting for him when he got to a trailer. Let me do it again. I know I can do it better. I swear to God, I had this idea last night. So I would totally be.
But sincerely, you meant it.
I'm going to pieces. Just crazy. Ooh, what do you mean go on to another? I didn't do it yet. I was just shitty. Why are you moving on? just so much that guy, and the experience of feeling that, I think, really helped me in terms of working with actors.
How could it not?
I think you have to feel it. You have to feel how powerless that is and stuff like that. And it was
perspective.
So it was. So I think it was great for me, but difficult for me.
Yeah, perspective. It's powerful stuff. I didn't understand.
I never understood Albert's ability to direct himself. Is like when I see it, I don't understand how it happens. I mean, it's just sort of amazing that.
Would he watch video playback?
I don't remember that he did. I think he'd just do it a lot of different times.
All the fucking shit on Quaaludes when he's talking to Petey.
Oh my God,
Petey.
Oh my God.
Look at my friends, Petey, Mr. Popularity. All of that stuff. I love my albums. All of that. And then his mother calls. I got a guy. There's people here, Mom. I can't talk to you. I'll call you right back. And he's doing. What's the number?
And Albert has a thing. Albert can start down any road, and maybe it's not happening right away. I mean, with people around and stuff like that, and where somebody might switch, he'll stay on the road and get his laughs. He'll stay there, and then it starts. I mean, it's just
there's no bailing.
His natural commitment. It's just
yeah. But it must be a marvel to be in that sort of rhythm with him. And then we'll flip.
And by the way, people don't know this. Fully trained actor, man. Big time school and everything.
Yeah. Well, Rob Reiner was here and talked about a little bit of summer theater stuff that they did together, and talked about how just insane, instantly ridiculous. Everyone stepped back.
I met Albert. Do you know who Louise Lasser is?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Okay, so she was
early Woody Allen, and
okay. I'll tell
Mary Hartman.
Great story. This is who she was. So she was this great girl. She was in his movie. She was tremendously funny. She was great. They were married. She tells a story about when they were in the townhouse and they were on the 5th floor, and there were these two people, and they're up there, and she tells this true story. There's a butler downstairs. She says, how do we get him to make spaghetti? She would tell these stories about these two shivering children who were doing these movies. And she was, just a great woman, great actress. And she talked about, and had been around Woody, had been around, which is at the tip of the comedy mountain and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw Albert and started to talk about it. And she says, how you have to see this guy. And at that time we were all, Penny Marshall and Rob's Place were the big hangout for everybody and stuff like that. And she said, here's Albert. And there was a guy, and he says, and he was telling a fortune with cards. And he was doing it very fast. And it took me a hunk of minutes before I realized, Jesus Christ, he was being funny. Just shuffling him up and talking a mile a minute until, like I say, the commitment got him someplace.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I met him. Telling my fortune.
What sort of joy then do you get from bringing him to broadcast news? And
well, I get this joy.
Okay.
Just before the Academy Awards, trying to publicize the fact that Sean Connery hit women. So how do we get it out there? Because that was the guy who beat him for the Academy Award.
I saw him 2 nights before the Academy Awards, I believe, 2 nights at the Improv, go on stage and improvise 45 minutes on why Sean Connery was going to win and he was going to lose, and how the wife beater. It was astonishing. It was you went past laughing, past crying, past breakfast. All your whole life happened in 45 minutes as he spun this incredible. How he connected the cosmonauts to golf, the invention by the Scots. And how the beating of women was this tradition that continued through time, and it was going to lead to the man holding a trophy instead of me. And oh, God, and I'm sure he doesn't remember a word of it. And it was an absolute clinic where it was just this. At some point, you just couldn't take your eyes off it. But beyond that, the dossier suggested that. The great uncontrollable nervous sweating was something that he or you had seen in action. What it says here is that he saw it in the middle of the night on CNN.
Call me. Yeah. Yeah.
He saw it actually happening.
Yes.
Basically, to someone.
Yes.
And you were instantly open to the idea.
I don't think I even touched the keys. I think it just went directly from the phone into the script. It was.
Oh man. There's those, but oh boy, when you talk about here's a guy who's actually incredibly trained. It takes a movie like Broadcast News where the speech about the devil. Oh boy, you talk about writing a monologue and watching it come to life. If you can give us a little bit of that moment for you, because I know what it's like to be a fan and watch him do that, having nothing to do with the creation of the moment, but to now learn about your aspiration and joy of coming up with a great monologue, and then to see, because he goes through 16 different levels of emotion in that.
Yeah, it was one of the hardest things that we did in the movie was finding the house where we could do that scene, finding the house that was Albert's house. Because I think a 10, 12-minute scene with 2 people, and the staging of it was very important, and I knew I needed levels, and I knew I wanted him to leave at some certain point.
Right.
And we rehearsed it, and it was an emotional rehearsal, rehearsing it. We were just all working late one night before that happened. And then, but seeing the movie, I don't think you can exaggerate how Albert did it.
Okay.
Because that monologue was the guy. It never was not the guy. It was always the guy's moment. It wasn't a fancy bit of writing that was there to. It was just, he just did that, and and working with a great actress. And you know, when she, and I think there are, and I think they fed off each other. I think Holly did something, you know, like there are two things when I look at it. I think, you know, I think what Albert did is uncanny.
Yeah.
You know, you know, it's just, it's when he imitated the devil, and but the fact that it
comes in the middle of a heartbreak.
It just had a life all its own. You know, it was a lot of things, but the little things were in the stage. What's in my mind is the difficulty of staging her when she came around once. What's in my mind was when he said "I love you" and she went, you know, which I thought was, I mean, just, you know, when people hit it out of the park, it's so wild. And then one thing that's just, you know, it's just a director's thing. There are two things in the movie that just, one where just before a take, I put a piece of red futz on Albert's shirt, and it's just on his shirt, and he just goes like that, and I celebrated that for 2 weeks. Like nobody ever did that. It's just like happens in life, and it happens to you all the time. It's in the movie, and so that insanity that you need to do it. Right. And then when she sat on the magazines and just did that, I mean, just, you know, stupid stuff. But in terms of, he never didn't do it great.
Right.
You know, it was not. But I just do think that's, you know, I'll put him up there for one of the monologues that ever happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it might be a good litmus test to find out if someone's a sociopath or not. Because if you can watch that scene and not empathize with his character, if you have no empathy at all, you should be in prison. You should be. You should absolutely instantly be taken.
I think you should be in prison if you simply haven't seen the movie.
Well,
that's how far I'm willing to take it.
You're not wrong, sir. Oh, wow. I see I could talk about that, and also the way that he goes out on the balcony.
And by the way, talk about Albert and that Saturday, he turned down host of Saturday Night Live when it first started. He did his films for Saturday Night Live. It's where he started being a filmmaker. He was a great stand-up comic, and he was, I think, a natural as a filmmaker, because the Saturday Night Live films are so, you know,
and easy.
When you think of you know, not to say, you know, Saturday Night Live does a lot of, you know, had a lot of great people doing films. Albert's films for Saturday Night Live are just
light years.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No,
yeah,
they are.
Yeah.
They're light years.
And so
there's a sophistication to it, considering the year and the time and the experience that he had making these short films.
And when he used to do Carson, man.
Oh, fuck.
They were. It's like, you know, you can just put them in a time capsule.
I was showing Jamie appearances. I did a thing on the Flip Wilson with Dave, the dummy.
Oh my God!
And he says, "I tell you what, Dave. Why don't you entertain everybody? I'm going to go have a cigarette." And he just dropped Dave and lit a cigarette.
And he had that toy that could say yes and what was that toy?
It was a speaking spell. Johnny. What was the character?
And by the way, you know what he went through before every performance, and you know, and
you
know,
the pain and the
I mean, it wasn't just like a guy. I'm doing Johnny tonight. It was somebody who's going to create something that night.
And using the Tonight Show basically as an open mic night, in the sense that things were happening there that weren't going to happen again, and hadn't happened anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm just going to create this thing, do it on the Tonight Show once, and then that'll be that. Speak Spanish. Buddy, it's Buddy. Buddy, you speak Spanish, is that right? See. You just hit letters. Oh, man. I'm curious, as a writer-director, when you have, you know, we spoke a little bit about Holly's moment on the I Love You. When you have his character catch Bill Hurt's character in the inadequacy of knowledge, a number of representatives, or
yeah, it was the
how many
members in the cabinet?
Yeah. Is it? I don't remember the exact, but there's a beautiful maneuver. There's only 10, or whatever that rhythm is. Yeah. Of course I know all 12. Don't make me name. I'm not going to name. You know, I'm not going to do this for you. There's only 10. And
it was so great. The one with integrity, the one with talent, the one who only said the truth was that the audience was, don't do that. You know, it was like.
Yeah, yeah. So you talked about the struggle a little bit with As Good as It Gets and finding an impossible level that ultimately was found. Easier on broadcast news in terms of these three having it, finding it?
Yes.
I don't know why I was able to assume that, because it might have had something to do with, first of all, there's no question you were breaking new ground with Jack's character in a sense that, like you were saying, not only could no one do that, no one had really done it, and that level of anger and empathy was nearly impossible. And here was, I mean, these characters are familiar in broadcast news in terms of design as personalities and traits and foibles and inconsistencies. However, within them, they are realized by actors where you have, not just with Albert, the perfect marriage of Bill Hurt in that part, the perfect marriage of Holly in her part. So I'm wondering, as a writer-director, I mean, I don't know how you don't just... I'm wrong to think that every day is a gift, aren't I? With those three in those roles.
We gave an interview at the end of the movie, and Holly and Albert were with me, and we were in New York, and the interviewer asked me what happened, and I talked in terms of how painful it was and how difficult it was, and how, you know, just how crazy I went, and then Albert said, yeah, and Holly said, me too, and I said, yeah, and they were kidding. They had had a blast. And then they laughed at me.
That's horrible.
Yes. Then they laughed at me that I hadn't had a blast.
Oh, well.
But Albert understood this. Albert said that one of the great pleasures of his life, he's directed movies, is going home as an actor at the end of the day and seeing how many more hours I had as everybody was talking to me, and you had to plan the next day, and feeling so great that he didn't have to do that.
Yeah, talk about perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The other side of it. I didn't want to do another T5, but I did have a question that I was trying to forward you, and that was directing Jack. I think it was 483. The dates were given, which is why I wanted to pull it up. But
I think I can do it off the top of my head.
83, 87.
83, yep.
I just remember Terms of Endearment. There was a sense where Jack had sort of drifted, and it was more than a comeback. It was a reinvention. And just that one shot in the trailer of him being on the Corvette going across, and it was the delivery of the happy, fat, and sassy, sexy Jack Nicholson that was instantly charming and lovable and embraceable. And that dangerous thing that he then carried for the next many, many years seemed to be somehow reinvented with that part.
It was the first time I directed, and there's Jack Nicholson, and he was great because what he has, and certainly it's the tough thing for an actor movie star to keep alive, is, all creative work is a war against self-consciousness. Self-consciousness is the enemy of creativity. It just is. And so that for an actor, and here I'm a first-time director, the best way for that actor to go is to trust the director. Like he said, Jack said the most incredible thing. I asked him once, "What do you do if you're in it?" It's my favorite one of my favorite things to him. There are a lot. What do you do if there's an actor who really can't act and they're in a scene with you? He says, whatever the other actor's doing is perfect. And of course, that's the perfect.
Jesus.
Oh, the minute you think of that, I mean, it's just, holy shit, yeah, oh God, that's smart, man. You know, what else?
But how do you get there?
He was, and how do you get to trust somebody who's never done it before when you've done it with distinction so many times? And he sort of does it. He sort of does it. And he used to come up behind me, and you know, and he made it fun. I mean, there was a lot of warring on that picture, but he made it fun. And he'd say, "You want to know the worst direction you gave yesterday?" And he'd tell me, "You want to know the best direction?" And it was so great. It was so great. And yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
He was great to me out of the box.
Right. And there was a lot of warring going on, of course. I mean, it was covered in every form of those things being covered between the ladies.
Well, man, you know.
Yeah, right. Oh, God. My sense of being anywhere around him was, don't bother Jack.
This would be great if we could do this in an interview. We went, oh God, and I go, yeah.
And then
we just stayed with it. Just not saying anything. Just God, man, we're on the same wavelength. We get it. We don't need words, man.
If I didn't have that little fucker in my brain saying, talk now, you idiot, I could have stayed in the moment.
We were so close there.
I know, fuck. Because I really was embracing every moment of Jack. I was shocked how silly and goofy he was. I figured for someone to be cool, by the time I worked with him already in the early 90s, he was cool to 4 generations already. In order to be that cool to 4 generations, you would have to have people talk about you, not to you. And I assumed Jack would be off doing that, and that's totally fine. He should be aloof. He was the most approachable, the most gregarious, and then the silly and goofy side really caught me off guard. I'd never seen anyone be that happy in their skin, in their clothes, in their persona, in their...
And now combine it with the vulnerability that everybody, you know, just keeping the vulnerability alive. That's the trick. Keeping.
It is the trick.
Yeah.
How? Why? It's the greatest magic act.
You know, let's start mentioning the greatest American actor who's ever lived, and you know, his name's there someplace.
No, he's in the group.
Yeah, you know that classic thing. I was having an argument years and years ago. You guys, when films, you know, off the '70s great films, maybe early '80s.
Right.
Who's the greatest actor we have? And a friend of mine was picking Dustin Hoffman. I was picking Jack Nicholson, and we're having the argument, sort of a drunken argument. And I won by saying Jack could play either part in The Odd Couple.
That was it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty fucking good. That was it. Holy shit. And then you directed Jack playing Felix. All those years later, holy shit.
Yeah.
Just to prove your point, by the way. Should that argument ever come up again. I had him as Oscar in terms, and then I had him as Felix, and As Good as It Gets. Holy shit.
Can I ask one?
Please.
So now you, writer-director, you acted in Albert's film, but you also have taken a couple of writer-directors and had them act in your films. Coming to mind, Larry Kasdan in As Good as It Gets, and Phil Rosenthal in Spanglish. And Ramis. But although he was also an actor, he made his living as an actor. So I'm...
but a filmmaker, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Good point.
Larry was great, because you wanted somebody with the authority, and one of the things you need is somebody who's going to come in for one day and really do the job and not be intimidated by Jack or anything like that. And he was, I think he was perfect. And Phil was sort of great, and it was a lark, but Phil made me a foodie. In other words, when I met, he's...
Jar.
But and a million other. I mean, he's our certainly the funniest restaurateur in the United States.
Easily. Yeah, Bobby's not that funny.
But he has such joy in it, and I didn't think I was going to get I'm not passionate about it or anything like that. But he did it for me. It was sort of great, and it really helped me on the movie because I had done the research, but just his part of the pleasure he got out of it was.
Yeah.
So him being around Thomas Keller for a day is,
cool. Also as good as it
Derek
gets.
Jeter for him, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll bet. The Brooklyn Laundry
Whoa.
Your imagine as a playwright, director.
I wasn't. It was somebody else. There was a different playwright.
I mean, as the director working with the playwright in this capacity.
Here's.
Please.
Yes. This, like I say, these stories are only good because they're literally true.
Right.
You know, I'm not trying to improve on a story or anything. I had just gone over to Sony. There was a thing that maybe if you wanted to do theater, I wanted to do theater. I was very naive about it. I thought it would take me a couple hours a day or something like that. Of course, it ends up being very consuming, and you realize everybody's in town's going to see it. And it was a playwright, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had never done theater or anything like that. And the playwright, a young woman, would say, no, don't worry, it's always the first day after tech is always this and stuff like that. And she'd be very reassuring to me, and something else would happen, and she'd say, this is so traditional when this is happening, stuff like this. And I would be comforted and reassured, and then I'd go to her for this kind of comment. And then we're getting very close to opening. I said, how do you know so much about this? She's, well, I did a lot of high school. And I just looked at it and I realized that it's like that you've been kept afloat by a piece of wood and then it's a rock, you know, and you don't know, oh my God, you were clinging to a rock.
Right.
But it was Laura Dern and Woody Harrelson and
I should have that in my notes.
Wait, no, Glenn Close.
Glenn Close.
And it was a great company, and we did it on La Cienega Boulevard, which is, you know, in a small theater on the Coronet Theater on La Cienega Boulevard, and we wanted to send out for food, and there's a great Japanese restaurant on the block that doesn't deliver.
Uh-oh.
So I called them up, and I said, I'm doing a play, and Robert De Niro is in it, and would you deliver? And they did.
No, you didn't.
Yes. So we had this great takeout for the whole for the whole.
You just
thing.
missed him. He was just here. You would say to the delivery guy.
Yeah, I once did it too, where there was a restaurant impossible to get into if you and not only could you not get into it, like Danielle, I think that was it in New York, and you had to and I was wearing sneakers and jeans, and you couldn't get in with sneakers and jeans, and you couldn't get in if you were wearing a suit, and I called up and I said I was having lunch with Tom Cruise, and I got reservations.
Of course.
And then he didn't come. Tom canceled.
Can't believe he stood you up.
Yeah.
You did that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. But we were interested in the play.
No, I only brought up the play to get those two stories.
Those are true stories, and it was really wonderful. We did it, and we made sure we got an audience that sort of represented the people, so that it wasn't everybody from the agencies coming every night.
Right.
And it was a very bonding experience with the three actors, and they ended up in the same dressing room because they liked each other so much, and it was just, it was one of the perfect hangout times I've ever had doing a piece of work.
Yeah, that's the rehearsal process seems like where all the magic is, of course. But I was curious why, if there's any particular reason that, or according to the research, you've not done it since. Too good?
I don't think I'm good enough at it. I think there are people who do it great. I really enjoyed it, and if somebody gave me a chance to do 4 months of it at some theater someplace, I'd love to do it. You know, it's a different technique. There was a fun thing once. We're up in Seattle. They said I could pick 2 scenes from anything, and I direct in front of 500 people with actors that I didn't know.
Wow.
As if it was the first day of rehearsal to show what directing is. And when I got there, of all the things, like how did I get myself, how could I have said yes to this? How could I have said yes to this? And then it was sort of neat because it ended up where we were just looking for it in front of an audience, so that it was sort of neat.
It took a couple of minutes to get them out of your peripheral and just focus on the actors, and once you did, I'm sure it was incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and also, this seemed like a kind of wonderful, scary way to challenge yourself, and I think at some point throughout the research, I'm seeing this happening. you know, and to hear the other side of it, and instead of just being in a vacuum wondering, was he just challenging himself, or it had its own criteria?
Well, you know, I always read plays. It always had a magic to me. I had the opportunity. I was lucky to have the opportunity to be able to do something. This came my way, and
a short run opportunity again makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I love about Woody Harrelson?
Please.
Cheers was coming to a close when we did that play. You know, the kind of pulls on. You know, this was an event in America, and man, he did the play. You know, it was. I thought that was great.
Oh, really? In the final tour of that show?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
He's pretty remarkable as a talent and as a guy. He's pretty remarkable.
Far too happy, man.
Yes. I know, right?
I mean, no, rubs it in. You know, no.
Well, there's no Jew in him is the problem. Here we go. Oh, that was the question. It was 83, 87, 97, and 2010, the 4 different dates, the years from Jorgen Peterson was asking, directing Jack. When you are fortunate enough to go back to that well, that of talent and one-of-a-kind talent, let's be clear, is there ever a part of you that says, it's now an embarrassment of riches, now it's ridiculous? Or is it just each time comes at a perfect opportunity for both of you and it just makes sense and that never factors into it? Because I guess what I'm saying is it's not fair to everyone else. that you've had so many amazing opportunities with the greatest living actor of our time. I'm kidding, of course, but tell me about just setting you up. Tell me about from the first time to the most recent time in terms of the span of one's life, opportunities. Because these 4 dates, when I first saw them, sort of represented such different times, not only in his life, but in yours as well.
The broadcast news thing was like, I mean, you know, it's the work. I mean, you know, the reason I don't quite relate to it, it's because the work takes precedence, and it does for each of us, and it's you know, so it's like not like that. I don't know. I don't know how. Yeah. So, but broadcast news, I needed there to be a guy who was huge in the background that registered that fast, that represented what the anchorman did with, you know. And I wanted Jack so badly, and I think I trapped him in a car one night, and I just really just poured it out how much I you know, and by the way, I think the insanity is sanity, because I believe it's not that I wanted him, it's that I needed him to make this happen. Right. I felt like I needed him. So that insanity, unfortunately, these insanities tend to be the truth. I needed him, you know. Right. And
well, there's the difference though between the truth as an artist and true insanity. Because it may be insane to some bean counter that you have to have him, but for the truth of what you're trying to establish, the instant gravitas of an anchorman of that stature.
Right.
There's 3-4 guys.
Right. So the whole thing is you won't be billed. Nobody's going to trade off you. Nobody's going to say you're in the movie. It's just going to be, you know, and this is what it is. And he came and he came down. It was sort of great. He came, and by the way, the thrill in a company when Jack's coming is a real, you know, it's a real lift. It jazzes everything up. So we've been slugging it out for a while, and he's coming down. And you go to wardrobe, and there are 12 suits, and this is an anchorman, so there are 12 suits that cost whatever amount of money these suits can possibly cost. And you say, and you pick the 2 suits, and Jack goes home with all 12. So he has a room where, you can imagine the career of this happening. You imagine what's in that.
Jack's taking all the suits. Of course he is.
And then he gets scared because he has to learn to read news, which he's never done, and he has to learn it in a hurry, and he has to master that. And it was great because in what the anchorman represented, Jack represented to the company and to everybody there. So it made, so in that case, organic. I think those scenes were so easy. I mean, they were so easy. That was just like velvet, you know. And we had fun. We actually had fun, you know. And you know, I do little stunts where people whisper things to him into the, you know, another actor, and I'll feed another actor something and see what he does with it. And
Right.
So we had fun.
It just seemed like a remarkable aspect to the remarkable journey, which is 4 cracks at that bat.
4 what?
Cracks at that bat.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, truly, in terms of dream casting, and all the elements, and even when it's that organic truth that speaks to you the loudest, when you stop them in the car and says, "Here's why you have to do it. Here's how you're not going to be taken advantage of," as opposed to literally taking advantage of a long-standing relationship. You know, there was always this, oh, well, this is...
Yeah, my goal was, it was such a short part, you know? I want to make your filmography. I want to get this in your filmography, and I did.
Yeah. That's pretty cool that that's part of it. Wow. That is fantastic, actually. Because the instant organic gravitas of him playing that Anchorman, that's a no-brainer, creatively speaking. Then it's like you, and like you said, when he pulls up to the set, the Jack pulls up to the set, you have the exact same emotion.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, wowsy, wow. I've been unbelievably greedy, sir, and you've been here 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I'm sorry.
They say that after every interview.
I cannot thank you enough. I do not say that after. I've never said that.
No, I'm saying
128.
every time somebody talks to me, they
go, "I'm sorry."
I'm
sorry, I'm taking from your life.
No.
Yeah. I hope this will have no bearing on our playing cards together. Thank you for changing our 7-Eleven into a Quickie Mart on Venice. That was such joy.
That was great, man.
God almighty. And Springfield, Vermont, I love that they went to Vermont and said, no, we're not saying this is the Springfield. We're just saying this is the one that was selected. We didn't get a chance to talk a little bit about that Portland screening of the movie and changes that came after because there was such...
Which movie?
Great, of the Simpsons movie. There's a lot of stuff you guys, the 4 of you, had given a bit of an interview years ago about that.
About the Simpsons movie?
Yeah. There was a screening in Portland where...
we just never stopped.
Yeah.
We never stopped. If you said you have to go do a rewrite for The Simpsons, I don't believe it stopped. We just never stopped rewriting that movie. And it was interesting because we made more changes later in post than on anything I'll ever work on. Substantial changes, yeah.
Right.
So it's sort of great.
All of that, and it might have been Al Jean or someone else who said we actually shot 3 movies and just showed the good one.
That's sort of true. You know, and when we worked together, we had put it off for so long.
Right.
And what I said about a year and a half into the damn process, I said the thing is that we're all like this, and we're somehow trying to make it look like we don't give a shit. You know, that's the job, to make it that loose and that, you know. So it was.
Oh God. Well, here's hoping it's possible. There's another one.
Oh yeah. There has to be.
You'll never stop the Simpsons.
As long as there's an accountant in
We got
heaven.
stories for you.
Like maybe
No, I mean another
there's a
Simpsons
robot, or Mo gets a cell phone.
Another Simpsons movie. I mean.
We have a thought, but just
Right.
it's just a thought.
All right. We'll take a thought for now, won't we?
We're coming up on 500 episodes this season, I think. Mm-hmm. Right?
I heard a rumor that they might have a Simpsons channel.
Well, the head of Fox gave an interview where he said of all the things, because, you know, thinking in the afterlife, what do you do with that many negatives?
Right.
And he said, and he was giving the range of choices, and he said that, but it's not like we're sitting there wanting. It's
Right. That quote picked up a lot of steam on the internet.
Yeah.
And I've read it. I've gone, guys, that would never. All of this syndication deals would have to expire at the perfect time, and it would just be such a nightmare.
One of my joys was singing in a different language. Can you remember the first time you saw it in a different country in a different language? Because that's always a remarkable thing.
It's always the easiest, cheapest laugh you can get. If
Yes.
You show, yes.
Homer talking
yes, in any
in
language, yes, in French, anything.
In French,
It's just, yes.
we were for the Cannes Film Festival, and my touchstone was The Simpsons
Yes,
in
yeah.
French. It was
Yeah.
just magical. Talk about the homage.
And it's different. If you hear the Mexican version, it's a much broader comedy.
I'm
just
sure.
From, just from the acting.
Oh, let's totally go.
That's right.
Sorry, Mr.
They're all Bumblebee guys.
Mr. Bumblebee.
Man.
Bumblebee Man.
Last chance for questions, kids, on The Simpsons. I know you guys have been dying the whole time.
No, I've been
You
well
okay?
behaved. Jamie, you got anything?
Do you have a favorite original song from The Simpsons?
Well,
That's interesting.
I did write one, but no. Somebody, the great song for us was the Bart song when Michael Jackson did it, and he called up one day and said, I love Bart, I'm going to give him a #1 single, and he did. So that was, that's sort of transcended
Did the Bart
everything.
Man.
Yeah, and how we recorded and how Michael did that and what it was, and like I said, surreal stuff.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's just ridiculous. All the people who came in at a fanship or
And
what
we had a
have you.
great story from Mike. I thought the Michael Jackson story was a great story. It was a 300-pound white guy who believed he was Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson played him.
It was
That
spectacular.
yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
was way beyond the line of now what do we do? Michael wants to be in an episode. It suddenly had such incredible heart
Yeah.
and sadness.
And he had a sound-alike sing for him. He did the acting, had a sound-alike sing for him. And when the sound-alike was in the studio, Michael laughed harder at that than anything.
Why would he not sing? Wow. Wow. I want to write a #1 song for Bart.
And that's what he said. That's what he said. Yeah. And
he did all the acting lines.
yeah, and worked very hard on an album. He did an album. Michael Jackson, in the middle of everything, did an album. And man, we were at the studio. It's surreal. We were in the recording studio. I'm working with Michael Jackson on an album, and I asked him. This is my stunning memory. I asked him about dancing and how he does it, because that's, at the time, it was like, and then he, in explaining it to me, without getting up from the chair, he danced, and you want to break into applause. Without getting up from the chair, he said, I don't just, and then he did something, and it was like,
Right. Yeah. We had John Landis here a few weeks back, and he went into a lot of the Thriller experience. And
never anything like it. The film, when they did it in the theaters, never anything like it.
No.
Singular.
Yeah.
And you saw the documentary of the last show, and he made you go there again.
Right. How is the question.
Yeah.
Oh golly! All right. The tradition at the end is to have the guests offer up their version of the Larry King game. I don't think I can tax you with that. I'm going to give you a pass.
Thank you.
Yes. It's out of that. I wanted to show you the apex of my admiration.
Wow.
Jane Campion is the only other one I gave the pass to, just so you know.
Because usually I begin every conversation in life with "Don't make me do imitations," and I forgot to do it today, so I really appreciate it.
I did the research. You didn't have to say it. It's in every other interview. Okay. If you wouldn't mind, so first of all, thank you.
Thank you.
Most sincerely. If you wouldn't mind sitting there uncomfortably off camera for another 90 seconds while I wrap things up for the fine folks at home. Personal high, thank you for bearing witness. Sammy, you okay, buddy?
I'm great.
All right, welcome back.
Thank you.
We won't let Antoon in the hollowed walls ever again.
Seriously, bullshit. It's like job security around here doesn't exist.
No. It was my mistake to allow him to do Who Tweeted. That'll never happen again.
Don't worry about it.
It felt strange having an air in here anyways.
Yeah, right.
Just so you know.
Right?
But that's not the reason why.
The TSA was outside.
Right.
It's really an awkward week, I'm told.
Jamie, I'm giving you can't have the drive home saying, I didn't get to.
He's at our house every week. Go ask him.
Oh, that's right. Listen to her. You got to make the right dessert. All right, and welcome back to Mike Rotman as well, and thanks to Josh Negrin, Emily Goodwin, and Jason McIntyre, who were out there, and Samantha Ward, who did the makeup, and Dr. Kenny Chen here in the studio as well. Thanks to everyone. Next week, the great Virginia Madsen. I'm so excited about that. We've got some great October interviews coming up. Check the schedule on the website. Super excited for the last 2 hours and 48 minutes, and now it is time to say, as I always do, get out of my face.